like that for a finance guy, hey?
Yeah.
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Yeah.
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
angikhathali eyo nto phela isuke inzima hard work I am ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo kumele ngabenza njalo I hold myself impumelelo sesiseduze nayo Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana She got the shamatana mani Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana She got the shamatana mani Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana She got the shamatana mani Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana She got the shamatana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana She got the shamatana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
angikhathali eyonto phela isuke inzima hard work ayena ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo kumele ngabenza njalo I hold myself impumelelo sesiseduze nayo Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana She got the shama charma Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana She got the shama charma Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes Gilesh Makanana, Shigepe Shamajarma, Shilohini, Shilohini Makanana, Shilohini Makanana, Shilohini Makanana, Shigepe Shamajarma, Gilesh Makanana, Gilesh Makanana, Gilesh Makanana, Gilesh Makanana, Shigepe Shamajarma, Gilesh Makanana, Gilesh Makanana, Gilesh Makanana, Gilesh Makanana.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM. You are listening to the Madlanga Commission, live on SAFM.
Good morning. Commissioners, this week we begin once again with the EMPD stream. We have our first witness available today, and the witness will be led by Advocate Sigals Nube. We are ready to begin as soon as the commissioners are. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Sillo.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yes. Commissioners, the witness for this morning is Mr. Kemraj Behari, and he has decided to take the oath, sworn in.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Behari. Please, by the way, I'm sorry. Do you swear that the evidence you are going to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Maybe before you start, Ms. Nube, let me say good morning, Mr. Behari, and place it on record that Mr. Behari and I have served on a board until recently. We're joint board members. And I'm putting it on record for what it's worth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mr. Behari, just some housekeeping. You should have before you your witness statement file, together with which is file 1 of 2. Can you just check in front of you? Your witness statement should be 44 pages long, and it's marked file 1 of 2.
That's correct.
Do you confirm that that is your statement that you prepared for purposes of your evidence before the Commission today?
I confirm, save as I've explained earlier, there is a few minor adjustments which we've gotten supplementary, but as we go along, I'll explain that.
Yes, we did discuss that. And do you confirm that the contents of your statement is true and correct?
I confirm that.
And you consider it to be binding on your conscience?
I do.
Now, then you should have also another file, which is file 2 of 2, which is the annexes to your statement.
That's correct.
And it should have 6 annexes until KB 6. If you look at the index.
I think there could be...
and they should be marked KB 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with labels.
That's correct. It should be, I'm not sure, Council. It's item 1 to 7.
Yes, but...
There's 4.2, 4.1, 4.2, so yes.
Yes, correct. But it goes until KB 6.
KB 6, that's correct.
Okay. And then there's another file, which is a supplementary bundle. It's referred to as supplementary bundle.
I confirm.
That file contains the Rule 3 notice that was sent to you by the Commission, which resulted in you responding thereto with your statement that we've just discussed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And in addition to that, there are extracts of a transcript from the evidence of Ms. Mashazi. Do you have that?
Yes.
There's an additional document that has been added for the benefit of the commissioners. It is page 84 and 85, which is an email from Mr. Behari to Ms. Naika on the 7th of December 2023. That was only added this morning.
That's correct.
And you have that. And I did discuss the inclusion of that document with you before your evidence.
I confirm that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Behari, before we start with your statement, if we can just go to the Rule 3 notice in the supplementary bundle, which is the first item, so that we can just have some context to the evidence that you're going to give today. Do you have the supplementary bundle, page 1?
Sorry, my apologies. If you could bear with me.
It's fine. Someone will assist you.
Supplementary bundle, page 1. That's correct. I have that.
Yes. It is a Rule 3 notice that was addressed to you. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. And if you go to page 2, it deals with allegations that have been made by witnesses that have given evidence before the Commission that may implicate you. And my understanding from your statement is that your statement will address quite a few of these allegations, but not necessarily all of them. You have, as I understand it, dealt with the primary allegations, and insofar as you could identify where you may have been implicated, and where you think you have not been implicated or it's not clear from the context, you have given general comments to those allegations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if we can then proceed to your statement, and that would be the file 1 of 2. Do you have it?
I do, ma'am.
Now, this part of your evidence is an opportunity for you to give your version to the commissioners in response to those allegations that may implicate you, and in respect of which you have already prepared a statement. So we don't necessarily expect you to read the entire statement, but where you do feel comfortable to read and some aspects of your statement, you are welcome to do so. But it is really an opportunity for you to put forward your version uninterrupted to a large extent. But at some point, I may ask questions of clarity, and the commissioners may as well. And thereafter, we will then start the session where we really test your version insofar as those allegations are concerned. Do you understand?
Mr. Behari, do it the way you want. If your preference is to read your statement from paragraph 1 all the way to paragraph 216, do it that way. But if you want to do it the way Ms. Sigels-Ngobe says, which is deal with the issues you want to highlight, do it that way.
Thank you, Chair.
We do not want you to leave the witness stand feeling that you were not given the opportunity to tell your story.
I appreciate the guidance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Please go ahead, Mr. Behari.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Good morning, commissioners. Yes, my name is Kemraj Prem Bihari, very often called Kemi. So I'm currently the head of risk and legal services at the city of Ekurhuleni. At the time when the incidents have happened, around 2023, I was just in the process of being appointed as the head of corporate legal services, as it then was. My functions, before being the head of department, I used to be the divisional head, municipal courts, bylaw enforcement, and compliance. So from there, the main function there was compliance. I established courts and so on throughout the Ekurhuleni region, but the compliance function was across 27 departments as it was then, which was then fizzled down to about 14 with the latest institutional review, and I did compliance across that. So throughout this process, Chair, my main focus has always been on the compliance function. I'm not involved in the HR space, save for special support that is required, either by the accounting officer or the head of that department. But I'll go through that in detail, and I'll welcome any further questions that are put to that. So when I was appointed then from 2024, actually from February, I was then in terms of the council resolution, I was then offered an opportunity to be the head of risk and legal services, which we're in the process of still finalizing that stage, at this stage. But I perform the functions of both risk and legal services. Chair, in the main, as a Section 56 employee, of course, the city manager is my accounting officer. When I got appointed and I think most of the issues that arise fall around that period, between February, March, at that stage, from October 2022, I was acting in that capacity as the head, and then I was appointed in a letter dated 30th of May 2023, and in that process then assumed my functions on the 1st of June 2023 as the head of the department. So the entire issues that happened with the investigation into the Brigadier Makonazi, I'm not sure, who later became the Deputy Chief of Police, it was during that period. And when I looked at the nature and scope of the statement that I received from the Commission, it focused basically on the following implicating witnesses. Of course, it's Chief of Police Mapiyeye, Deputy Chief of Police Rivo Spies, Mr. Kolani Niza, who was the divisional head, and Ms. Kelebogile Tepa. I think she was Colonel or Lieutenant Colonel, I'm not sure, from a civilian perspective in terms of exactly what. And then there was, in the letter from the Commission, there was a reference to a witness D. Of course, we heard what has happened then, since then. I've looked at all the record, the entire record, all the documents given to me. I could not find anywhere where witness D had referenced me. I then communicated with the Commission's attorneys, I think it was Mr. Pokpas, if I'm not mistaken, to say, but can you guide me in terms of where I have been referenced by witness D in the process? Because I have never had any dealings with the witness D throughout my life and throughout my career at the Ekurhuleni. More especially because it concerned me, because when I looked at the record, in the transcript of Ms. Kelebogile Tepa, there seems to have been a place where her evidence ended, and then immediately thereafter, the evidence of witness D commenced in the same record. So I sought clarity. I haven't got that clarity, but as I said, I've moved beyond that to say that I do not have any dealings. I've never had any dealings with the witness D. May his soul rest in peace. So that is where I focused in, Chair. The statement then is structured to assist the Commission after setting out necessary background. I think a lot of the evidence that I've went through in the records, I found that sometimes I needed to come, and that's why I appreciate your guidance, Chair, that I must speak, the main focus here, for me it was shocking, astonishing in all my career, to come and hear that you've received a 600,000 rand loyalty money, bribe, however it's linked. I will deal with that issue because, Chair, that will take me back to where this matter comes through. And but that was for me. I don't know. I've been through, through a lot. But I'm saying I'm glad that the opportunity has come for this. So the allegations directed against me arise basically from the events that happened between 2023 and 2025. And during this period, Chair, remember the new council came into operation around late 2021, 2022. And it was highly political turbulence. In fact, as I started engaging with the matters and traced back, even in the September council meeting of this year, of 2025, more information was coming out about what happened during those periods. And I'll deal with that, Chair. So it is definitely necessary for me to then deal with this. It was an issue of financial strain in the budgets. And you may ask, how is it related to? It is about issues that have been picked up. Even the fact that we've had witnesses come to the Commission 2 years after these incidents to have happened, did not follow internal processes. And I think Chair, Commissioner Baloyi, you spoke about any processes available internally to address certain mechanisms, but we'll deal with that. But there are several mechanisms at local government level to address any allegations of impropriety, corruption, misconduct, even if the city manager, heads of departments who were not acting in accordance with that. Then I went back and I looked at introspection. What could I have done that has led to the three officers? I think Colonel Teppa, not too much, she mentioned about something about me not, processing her grievance, but I've got evidence for that, Chair, which I'll lead to that. But in the main, it was Chief Mapi, Deputy Chief Rivers Peace and Divisional Head Neza. And I asked myself that, so had there not been a hero or a heroic figure like General Makonazi, who in July went and released us, would that always have just been kept under the carpet? Was it not necessary to have dealt with the issue? Because as we are uncovering every day the news of CAT VIP and Vusimusi CAT Matlala and Medicare 24, did they not consider it important at that stage? And I'll come to my, what did I consider at that stage? That you had waited now for almost 2 years. Even our president didn't know that this was going to be revealed. So without trying to find an excuse in terms of them coming, yes, they can come at any stage to raise the issue. But for me, it seemed like they were structured. It was structured and added to a stage where let's focus on the three characters. I don't want to talk too much about city manager. I'm sure I'll be dealing with that in cross-examination. But she's my accounting officer. She was my accounting officer. And the CEO of the company, I can't say that I totally ignore what the requests are, as long as those requests are lawful. And that is where the area I will get to. So
my apologies, Mr. Behari. As you're going through your statement, if you could just orientate us as to which paragraph you're dealing with so that we can also find you.
All right, thank you for that. I think I've
on my count, you on page 4 now.
I'm on page 4, exactly, yes. And maybe taking some of the leeway from chairperson
no,
to say speak.
That's fine.
But I'm glad you brought it up. So I'm on page 4, at paragraph 12, I'm coming down that way. So it was important then that, given my role in the city, that the main governing policy was directly taken from the Section 59 of the Municipal Systems Act, which is the system of delegations. That is the document that gives you your powers, what you should do, what you can do, what you cannot do. And I've attached as Annex KB 2 to my document an extract of the system of delegations. Chair, if you would like me to go through in detail, or can we take it as being read because it's part of the annexes, but I can go through that in detail as well.
What's your preference?
I think, let me just go through it because, Chair, it's important given the evidence that has been laid already in terms of who had what delegations, when did they have those delegations. So let me go through that. Not too much in detail, but at least to give us the crux.
Yes, all right, thank you.
It would be the annexes bundle KB2, page 3. On page 3.
Okay. Chair, if we go to page, I think it starts off at page 4 of the annexes bundle. So there are delegations that are reserved for certain functionaries in the city. There's political delegations from the executive mayor, the speaker, and all other office bearers, political office bearers. And then the B delegated powers of all the administration come from that delegated to the city manager. So that city manager then delegates the functions to each individual head of department. And then the sub-delegations in that where the head of department is delegated to the divisional head or any other functionary in that department. So to deal with page 4, my specific delegations dealt with to institute and defend action in all courts of law, including quasi-judicial forums on behalf of council. The signing of all documents necessary, that's also been sub-delegated. Appoint attorneys and or counsel on the relevant experts when required. Lodge or oppose appeals. Consider settlements. That is on 6 now, Roman numeral 6. Ensure compliance with any bylaw of the council or right of council. Appoint legal representatives, including representatives not on the panel of attorneys. So there could be a prior deviation process where you could process. But we've stuck in the main not to invite trouble in breaching the MFMA, that we stuck to the panel members. Identify areas of non-compliance with applicable legislation in the municipality and also report thereon to the city manager and the risk committee. So, Chair, in the main, the function of compliance was what I've been involved in, apart from the litigation processes. But the compliance for me as a compliance officer of the city was a paramount function, because in the city we have almost 400 pieces of legislation that we have to now. I'm a novice at dealing with all that 400 pieces of legislation, but at least we know where to find it, how you interact, and how you enroll. And we apply that then, Chair, as it comes to the necessary environment, whether it's energy, NERSA, water, ICT, hacking, all of those issues that come through. So, in addition to the express delegations on paragraph 13, Chair, of my statement, there's also included other forms of delegation where the city manager can give you certain delegations. But of course, those delegations cannot be outside the powers of that city manager. It must be falling within the realms of the system of delegations. And in terms of the Municipal Finance Management Act, on an annual basis, there are delegations from the city manager to the heads of departments, including the GCFO, heads of departments, and there are sub-delegations to the different other other employee levels. Now, why that is important, Chair, and why I'm mentioning that, is to focus on what Mr. Meza, throughout the conversation, we heard him refer to a delegation that was given to him by an acting city manager, Mr. Joe Mojapelo. It was just before, I think it was July 20, it'll be in his bundle.
2017.
2017.
A letter of, is it not June 2017?
It is during that period, but it was just prior the October 2017 system of delegations coming in. Yeah. And I think he's also referred to a case, is it a Mabusela case, but we'll come to that, Chair, at that time. So I'm focusing on this to say, can you delegate a function that you would not ordinarily have had in the greater scheme of things with a system of delegations? And if you had done that, if there's delegations from acting city manager Mojapelo were valid. Indeed, the moment the new system of delegations came in, applicable to the entire city, it says in the document that it revokes any previous delegations. whether it's an old system of delegations that would be in 2011, or whether it's specific delegations from a city manager or any other functionary. So you start off on a clean slate. In addition to that, Chair, it became apparent that various departments, including Human Resources Department and EMPD, had developed irregular processes. So when I started acting Chair from November 2022, I was faced with a barrage from attorneys. And I've always been sympathetic, being a former attorney myself, to the costs and the fees not being paid. I faced a barrage from attorneys who were appointed in HR matters. And I can refer to them as well. I mean, one includes Mr. Majang, who was mentioned in the papers. And they came to me, and there's a particular attorney, Mr. Mashuru Tenga from Madlopa Tenga, who came to me to say, but HOD, okay, what is happening that we're not being paid? I've not been paid for 7 years now. And I said to him, sir, I'm just acting now, I'm trying to clear that out. But why have you not raised this thing in 7 years? So he says to me, he was trying to keep the relationship. So I'm saying, are you saying now that you don't want any relationship with me, that I'm acting? But it was just to say that these are the concerns in terms of what I was finding when I got into the department on EMPD and HR processes not being followed through, and unpaid legal fees, adverse awards against the city, and the undermining of accountability processes. And that is why it's important that I speak about that delegation of City Manager Joe Majapelo at that stage. So when that process happened, Chair, and if I want to cross-reference, if I may, to the document of Mr. Rivo Spies, where he attached, which is so-called minutes of a meeting that were held with the EMPD top brass and the city manager. With your leave, Chair, may I quickly? I stand corrected, but it is a document which was supposedly a meeting. So I don't know if it's either by Chief Mapieye or Mr. Spies, where there was a meeting held at the office of the city manager. I was absent from that meeting, and where several officers lodged complaints about what was happening. There's a particular reference to Mr. Okut Besadenhout, where he stated that 99% of labor matters that are being sent on arbitration are being lost. So it necessitated us going in and looking at what is the issue. I mean, we've had, and Mr. Gneza, I don't want to say anything incorrectly, but he's an experienced HR practitioner. He was very experienced, he had many years there. But then what was there happening that every matter referred to, or almost 99%, was lost? That loss at the Labour Court, without doing our due diligence and proper preparation, has an impact on our cost implications. It has an impact on our budget. Because of the city, Chair, we have at this stage, as I'm speaking to you now, a contingent liability account of almost R1 billion. When I took office, it was just more than R1 billion. And the emphasis had to be on doing proper investigations, getting proper evidence, looking at the prospects of success and what needed to be done to ensure that we do not have the situation, because in labor matters, it is highly intensive on procedure. And then the substantive aspects come in. So that has always been my interest. And I'm coming to the process, Chair, of what happened in this Mkonazi, General Mkonazi and Brigadier Mkonazi matter. Upon assuming office, I implemented, when I discovered these issues happening, Chair, the budget for legal services was at the City Corporate Legal Services Department. To go for another department official in another department to come and incur the cost on our budget, whereas that is there, it would have been non-compliant with the vote allocated in terms of the Municipal Finance Management Act. Even if you apply the Public Finance Management Act, those votes are very important. Who are the authorizing persons? How are they done? Who instructs attorneys? And I looked at, in the main, because of the complaints I received from Mr. Majang and Mr. Madlopa, amongst all the other attorneys, of the fees not being paid in 7 years. For me, I couldn't understand how, in an annual budget, where you have a budget allocated, that you could have overruns. And then I started finding out that, and this has happened recently as well. I've got some WhatsApp messages I'll share with the Commission as well. When attorneys in critical matters were not being paid, I was becoming a kind of a debt collector for the attorneys and advocates. I don't mind that, because in fact, the attorneys and advocates were doing very good work. If they were not doing good work, because we were involved in every matter now, then of course I would raise that. But when you hear the stories, I'm saying about quite experienced advocates, senior counsel. And then I started looking at what is happening with this issue of the legal costs. What are the irregularities that are happening? And then I uncovered that Mr. Ngisa has been using this delegation from Mr. Mojapelo to start using the threshold of 500,000 rand that he could approve. And he was appointing the attorneys. Primarily, when I uncovered this, was about 5 attorneys. And these were Majang, Madlopa Tenga, Mr. Zebediela, Jack Zebediela, David Mokhaswa, and one other firm, which I can't remember, but I can't get that. And I'm saying, but these are attorneys, but you're appointing them and you're not paying them. But the obligations to answer to counsel would be on my obligation. It will be hard to account for why the monies have not been there. And there seemed to be a progress in terms of the finance that every year, in the last 3 months of the financial year, they don't pay. They ask the parties to roll over the accounts into the new year. So these for me are irregularities. And I questioned the appointment with the former divisional head, Davy Frank, to say, but how is Mr. Ngisa appointing attorneys, incurring the costs, and how do we control it? Because I'm answerable at the end of the day for that budget. I've also established then, Chair, that there were practices where in the appointment of attorneys, you have a Form K, which is part of the agreement, that attorneys, okay, with advocates, we're not so strict because we look at the Bar Council rules and so on. But with attorneys, that when they're appointed, they follow what do you call this, a tariff, especially catered for us to see how we can save costs. And even with that, attorneys making that sacrifice to go at a lower tariff, you still withhold the payments to them. So this is like a total value chain, Chair. If you express, and how we came to what we came to where I'm implicated now in these matters. Establish a fees vetting committee to say, but who looks at the vetting of attorneys' fees? We've uncovered almost 3 million rand we saved because we've now started putting a due diligence. Before that, legal advisors were just settling on accounts. Legal advisors were appointing attorneys, and in one incident, a legal advisor at the legal department had moved the matter from one attorney who's been dealing with the matter for a long time to another advocate who's related to one of the staff members, who charges 100,000 rand for a plea on a collision matter. And for me, that is where, I started looking at, but what has been happening? And when I started asking these questions, I get a pushback. But I've ventured on, I carried on with my team. I said, no, we'll do the vetting. We set up the fees vetting committee. We will continue to do that. But then the challenge came then with the finance approving that. So I'm not being popular at the city for many reasons, Chair. And that was because I was trying to get the legal framework in place. So in disciplinary matters, then I think that could be to avoid all the procedural defects and failed disciplinary inquiries. This is where the involvement from a compliance perspective, my involvement comes in. If you go to page 17, or paragraph 17, I've dealt with it became a very hostile environment here. In this period, the city also experienced serious instances of political interference. Chair, and I appreciate the fact that you said speak, because that is where it comes through. So because apart from what was happening at EMPD, there seemed to be a total collapse. There was a total distrust between certain categories of employees and other employees. And it dealt with promotions across the board, to the extent that even last year, I think it was widely reported that the EMPD had come to a shutdown, EMPD police officers. They blocked highways. And that hinged on only one decision, Chair. It was a decision of the CFO to cut down overtime without consultation. And that brought, I know there were officers who performed, they were, not the whole of EMPD is rotten. For me, the management needs to be addressed. But they're hardworking officers who put their lives at risk to go there. But to be excluded all of a sudden from, and this history of overtime in the city of Ekurhuleni, it's not become what you would expect of an overtime, where you say overtime is something over and above what you earn. It has become a trend over the last 15, 20 years, where that overtime is seen as being definite. And people budget on that. People live their lives on that. So when I looked at that issues and the costly, and I said but we need to start looking at the problems in EMPD and the issues that came about later on. I wasn't aware at the time when the matter came to me about the challenges, the full challenges at EMPD. That was only after the meeting with the city manager, and when city manager decided then to issue a directive or a letter. That letter, I think, is in the bundle as well from Mr. Ngeza of the 22nd of August, if I'm not mistaken, Chair, where it seems to be seen that we usurp the functions of Mr. Ngeza. So, in the political interference, which it is quite, how do I say, unabated. No apologies. Because the main thing when I looked at the file and how the file came to me, the file of the investigation onto the internal affairs of Colonel Erasmus, was when I think Colonel Erasmus, who was the collator of that docket, approached me towards the latter part of May 2023 to say, HOD, we're applying for an extension of the suspension. Mr. Mkonazi was suspended sometimes in February. We want to have an extension of the suspension. So I said to him, in terms of your HR guidelines, labor legislation guidelines, and I must say that I have which I consider a good relationship with Mr. Henny Erasmus, even up to the 1st of December 2025. I said to him, Mr. Erasmus, or we call him Henny, why is the need for an extension because you finalized your docket, your investigations in March of 2023. By that time, Mr. Makunazi would have been already on suspension for about a month. The collective bargaining speaks to the 3-month period. But it's 3 months from when the decision, I think it's clause 7 or paragraph 7, to proceed with disciplinary proceedings. Now that decision was taken by, it says, by the city manager or a duly authorized representative. So Mr. Mniza, in my landscape using the system of delegations October 2017, that decision would have to be taken by the city manager or the head of department of HR.
Would that be the decision to extend the suspension?
Extend the suspension as well as proceed with disciplinary. So what Erasmus was looking for was for me to give some supportive comments to say, can we do that? And that's when I said to Mr. Erasmus at that stage, please, I'm inundated now. Please, can you leave the file with me? I will go through it and I'll place the time, because he said to me the suspension was coming to an end. So I met with Mr. Erasmus again after going through the file a day or two later. And if I may, I just want to skip a few, which we can come through. But in the crux in my meeting, if I may take just a slight step back, the period of high-profile investigations that we were dealing with at my level involved the EMPD Blue Lights Matter. It wasn't an investigation that I was dealing with, but it came through as what the city was dealing with. It involved CAT VIP and former acting Chief Brigadier Makunazi. It should be, that's one of the issues I wanted to change in my supplementary. If I look at page 20.1, I actually said acting deputy chief of police. He wasn't the acting chief, he was acting deputy chief. That is page 6, paragraph 20.1, Chair. Then, unfortunately...
Sorry,
yes, Chair.
Mr. Perry, what are you changing in 20.1 on page 6?
So, where I said 20.1, I said involving VIP security and former acting chief Brigadier Makunazi. It should be acting deputy chief.
Oh, okay.
And then these matters all fell within that period. Then a sexual harassment complaint and related misconduct allegations against the chief of police was lodged. Subsequent to that complaint, we were accused by an attorney of the complainant to say, but this complaint has been lodged by then, and you are protecting the chief of police. I was not aware of any complaint prior to that letter from the attorney. I can't remember the attorney right now, but I do have his details in the office. Then the Sintel traffic fines irregularities implicating Deputy Chief Spies. And then the suspension and eventual dismissal of Divisional Head Employee Relations, Mr. Gneza, on the grounds of misrepresentation of qualifications and contractual non-compliance. So these are essentially the witnesses who implicated me in terms of what I've done legally, procedurally, and accountability on behalf of the city. On page 20, the Commission will observe that none of these allegations raised against me, though, were given to show a direct link to any incidents of corruption, fraud, for me. The way the matter was carried out and aired, and in fact, it was even done before I think they came to the Commission to say that these two HODs received a massive increase of 600,000 without going into and looking at the document to say where does this come from? So, Chair, I now deal with the specific allegations. This is the salary adjustment. But if the Chair would perhaps maybe out of more interest, maybe I should go to the investigation first of Mkonazi, or can I follow this trail of thought, Chair?
Is it not better? I think it makes it better for us to follow the narrative if you deal with them in the manner in which you've itemized them here.
Thank you, Chair.
Not so much itemized in the manner in which you've dealt with them here.
Thank you very much. So, Chair, when it comes to that, a central allegation advanced before this commission, particularly by Mr. Gneza, is that the adjustment of my remuneration in 2023 constituted a so-called loyalty bonus. And that loyalty bonus was linked to my so-called involvement in...
Which heading are we dealing with?
Number 24, Chair.
Page 7, Chair.
Page 7.
The top of page 7, paragraph 24.
Thank you.
And that was then linked to say that, no, Mr. Bihari stopped the investigation or the disciplinary proceedings against Mkunazi and then received this loyalty bonus. The allegation for me, Chair, is unfounded. I never involved in any disciplinary processes at staff at a lower level. My engagements with Mr. Erasmus was to look at the compliance issues. What would be the prospects? What are the glaring issues you can see in the files as regards calling of the witnesses? I know my former colleague, Niza, said, but he acted as a shop steward. I mean, there's some way they say, you expect shop stewards to act like this. Chair, in our environment where you face litigation costs which are spiraling, and to understand, you have to play the other side and say, what could be this impact that could lead to a possible loss of the case for the city and future risk that we could then be sued. So how do you mitigate against these issues? That is what my intention was. And in terms of guiding that. So when I was appointed as the head of department, Chair, paragraph 25, with effect from the 1st of June 2023, the all-inclusive remuneration package approved for the position was, I think it was 2,055,000. When I was a divisional head, immediately prior to that, because of the 8 years that I've been at the city, my salary had already come through an amount of about 2,088,000. So effectively, I know I should have been a better person perhaps at that stage and say, no, even with a new function, with the added responsibilities as the head of department, I must take a pay cut. But I'm saying that I asked the city manager to say, but how is it now that I've got to take a pay cut for running 4 divisions instead of 1? So I did not sign my contract because I was negotiating to say, but what can be done? I was just given an undertaking to say, no, there is a process for salary review that goes to organize structures within the city. The city manager had no power to increase my salary. She had no power. What she did was give me the undertaking to say, because I signed my contract of employment on the last day, the 30th of June, 2023. Having to consider and go through that, but what do I do? At the risk of not having, because my contract as divisional head would come to an end. I would have to consider family issues and all of those matters. And what do I do? So on the undertaking to say that, no, we'll submit a evaluation to the remuneration committee and let them decide. And I'll deal with the issues thereafter. I also picked on numerous other irregularities pertaining to heads of departments' appointments, including which has been raised by most of the metros that are now in Gauteng have been raising issues on irregularities in the appointment, because after the 1st of November 2022, when the Municipal Systems Act was amended, there were new provisions brought in, and all the heads of departments appointed after that needed to be complied with that. But the council and certain members or certain parties in council were constantly trying to defeat that. Why? For no other purpose than say, no, we want to control a head of department. I was not prepared to do that. And I'll talk to other incidents why. So the issues of permanence of heads of departments, the issues of members of the panel, these all arose. The issues of the MEC's functions arose. And what could the MEC do? And I had an appointment, even with the MEC. I must say I find him to be a very wonderful character. MEC Mamabolo. And we had our engagements. And I had to say, and it was treated on my side to say, oh, is he being rude now by raising issues, which I wanted to look at protecting the integrity of the city. So there was a process, Chair, which was recognized. You know, I don't want to bring in Mr. Ngeza, but Mr. Ngeza himself is aware of the review processes. He has applied for review through his head of department on the same way basis. The evidence is there, I have it. I don't want to put it out like what my salary stuff went on. And why I had an interest of that was not even for this party. It was because of the instructions that we developed that
Just a second, please, Mr. President. Please continue.
And why I'm saying that is vital, it's not about me saying, oh, he said this and I must say this and try and expose him. No. It's about me having taken instructions based on his termination as an employee of the city, which went through several external factors.
Had Mr. Ngeza's positions also changed, or was he trying to have his remuneration reviewed whilst he was still in the same position?
Yes.
Or had he, like you, had a change in position?
The one was, he was appointed to a position, and then he wrote to his HOD, I think it was Ms. Naledi Modibedi at the time. She moved it to the city manager, Dr. Mashazi, and Dr. Mashazi approved it.
Okay, no, I just wanted to see if the two situations you are comparing were analogous. Okay. No, you may continue, thank you.
Yes, and that is where, Chair, I try to come to the point that Dr. Mashazi, apart from moving something on behalf of, because any issues that concern my contract, I needed to raise with her. She just moved it to the organized structures, to remuneration committee. Remuneration committee is, remember in the system of delegations, the 2017 October, the negotiation of salary increments and so on lies with the executive mayor under delegation. The executive mayor then, through the mayoral committee and the remuneration committee, deals with those issues. So we are not involved in that process. Even though I sit, HOD HR and myself sits in a lot of in-committee meetings and so on, we're not involved because it involved us directly. Right. So HOD HR could not even sit because she was also, so she was appointed in March 2023. I was appointed on the 1st of June 2023. So when the application was moved, then I think it was in July, it was after the ratios are raised to say, I'm concerned. I mean, how do I deal with the issue? And I was given the assurance that you'll move with an application. And then there was a full process through the remuneration committee, which when they've made a decision, they then moved to the mayoral committee, and the mayoral committee approved those increases based on our submissions. And because the mayoral committee is a committee of council, they then do a noting to council. So any councillors that are not happy with that can then say to the mayoral committee, I want more details, I want this. Okay. So that is where, and that is why I was so concerned when it looked like as if, you know, we were just given the 600,000 in my pocket. But if you look at then the increase of 500,000, bringing it down amounts to about 24,000 a month, actual difference in my salary after taxes. That is for taking on three other divisions.
I was going to correct you until you said after deductions. If you had not said that, I would have said you are incorrect.
After the tax implications. So yes, Chair. So I've included my whole salary at KB3 of the annexures. That is very annexure KB3.
Which is page 6 of the annexure bundle.
So for full disclosure, because I mean the salary increases are. So if we look at that table, Chair, KB3, page 6. On the 1st of July 2022, the salary to the 31st of May 2023, when my position as divisional head ended, there's the salary that I've described. So I was earning 2,088,551 rands. On the 1st of June, there's a knock of about 30,000 rands, of 2,055,000. Of course, then later on in November, the normal increase came through, and then that brought the amounts. But Chair, I want to emphasize the fact that there was no loyalty bonus. There was no way the matter was portrayed in all before the commission and in all the media that we received something which would look at corruption. Chair, that is where, so if it's corruption, that means I or city manager would have had to influence the entire set of politicians, even up to council. Then the entire council will be part of the corruption. And this is why it is absurd of how this was done. But it was done for a particular purpose, Chair. It was done for a particular purpose to harm my fame, to harm my reputation, to harm HOD's reputation. And even when I go back to the political interventions or political interference, it'll show how, because between June and July of 2025, I'm just expanding on that, Chair, of 2025, I was brought under enormous pressure by the current city manager, Mr. Kagiso Lerutla, who was a CFO at the time, to settle. Kagiso Lerutla and Dr. Kupedi were vying for the city manager positions. And I was asked, because of certain agreements that were reached at the regional conference of the ANC, the African National Congress, that the agreements reached that you must settle NISA and you must settle Chief of Police. So at that stage I resisted, because if you're settling on NISA, what are you settling on? Because the allegations is that first he was dismissed after not having met the basic suspensive conditions of his letter of appointment. He is a divisional head, employee relations. He ensures that contracts of all the divisional heads and HODs and so on are in place. Yet he did not have a signed contract months, if not years, after his appointment. That would again bring us to the Auditor General to look at, is this irregular expenditure, unauthorized or fruitless and wasteful? We have to look at what category it would fall under, because you don't have an underlying approval. So those are my concerns, Chair. With respect to Mr. Chief of Police Mapiyeye, my question was, how must I motivate to settle? You are talking as a city on gender-based violence, 16 days of activism. It is something that we are just, when the time comes to get popularity, we're talking about. Because as Commissioner Baloy has pointed out, I'm still a board member, Commissioner. I'm deciding now, my term is coming to an end. And then we give the new blood chance to come in. But for the Institute for African Women in Law, I belong to a group called FemNet International. I'm also involved in the South African chapter of International Association of Women Judges as the Secretary of the Trust for Training. Now, given all of these issues, where would I put my conscience when there's serious allegations being made to say, no, okay, fine, you want, let's settle the matter? Because already Chief Mapuyeye had an internal, they had a report, a forensic report done by a firm of attorneys, which was very scathing. It's available to the extent that commissioners need it. Already there was a protection order which was made final in the magistrate's court. And Chief of Police didn't even bother to go and oppose that in the light of serious allegations. And then we have the process of the disciplinary internally, where political interference came in from the beginning, Chair. It came in the way in which it was presented. Now, when it's an item against a senior manager, it is an item for the city manager, the accounting officer. But out of courtesy, city manager pushed it through to, to the mayoral committee. But when it came to the mayoral committee, despite assurances, we involved in protecting women, protecting our staff, there was a resistance. Every time the matter was to be served, we found that the mayor was not present. He would give somebody else to do it. Then that person would say, no, as acting mayor, I think I want to wait for the mayor to come. So time was going. We were already accused of delaying the process by the attorney. So these are some of the issues that, and then the people who really came in there with the executive mayor from Tagaza was Alderman Tanya Campbell. Now, I have full respect for all the political parties that are in the city. The DA, I get on well with the DA elements. I get on well with Action SA, ANC, EFF, even the minority parties. But there are a few elements that have been pushing this for a particular agenda. And that has caused huge strain in the city. That has been now extended to interference in committees. The Oversight Committee for the Mayor and Legislature. The Oversight Committee for Corporate and Shared Services. These are, out of desperation, I rose to those committees to say, but this interference is unbearable now. Because, and those are some of the things I just want to try and come back. I know I can, when you deal with this issue, then you look at what happened, Chair. And please, my apologies but bring me back, Chair. So to emphasize the fact that the salary increment for me was no way about any corruption, no way in stopping any investigation or any disciplinary process. It was not my environment to do that, Chair. So when come back now, I know there's a lot of interest in Erasmus, and I said to Erasmus, are you finished with your investigations? Do you want an extension? How long do you want the extension for? Because, Chair, in any process in the labor environment and a lot of courts, if you're out of time for any particular reason, you can still have the condemnation leg that you can merit why you can make application for condemnation. What? Because these were serious. I mean, they were very serious charges. But I'm saying that in Erasmus, when I started looking at the trail of the witnesses, when I started looking at every document, what was for me very glaring, and I don't know why other people have not been picking up that on this, is the involvement of CAT VIP services, Anubis, I think it's Anubis, and Medicare 24 from 2019, Chair. 2019, there was a letter that Brigadier Maganazi sent to the Chief of Police. I didn't see the date on that letter. But from 2019, they've been involved apparently from COVID. Then it came very important, and that is where my real focus was. The State of the City Address, 30th of March, 2022. What happened at the State of the City? And I asked this of Henny Erasmus. I said, Henny, but who was there responsible? Now we had evidence about the MOU, and I'll deal with the MOU. Chair. Then there was also evidence about the operational plan that was forged. And I will come to that, because at that stage, Chair, when you're dealing with the chief investigator or the compiler of that, you have to look at then what Rivers Peace raised on the forgeries, on what he detected. I agree totally with that. If you look at the documents, you look at the font, you're looking at that. But it's like somebody looking specifically for where you can find it. Because for me, and the common eyes looks at the signatures there, the 4 authorized signatures, and it behoves then for them to be put to their version. Are these your signatures? And then, so that you could also go and get a proper expert to say that are these signatures, who are they, and so on. This matter with Brigadier Mukunazi then, where my concern arose, and that also goes through when we come and deal with the IPID issue. Because if you look at the IPID report as well, there's a lot of overlapping in terms of the witnesses. And when I spoke to Henny, the witnesses were in the main Christine.
Mr. Behari, as much as I gave you leeway to tell your story as freely and as comprehensively as you want to, but we also do want to have progress. We are around page 8 now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we're on page 8.
And it's been quite a while. To get to page 44, at this rate, it looks like it will take us forever. You will be on a topic and then you move on to another one. I think you are done with the one you were dealing with. And then you say, let me go back to Erasmus, when I thought you were already done with Erasmus.
Okay. No.
Perhaps we would have been moving much, much faster if you were reading your statement and perhaps supplementing here and there. I'm just trying, a balancing act of sorts, so that there's movement, real movement.
Point is taken, Chair. Let me strive to do that.
Yes, please.
It's just that on some certain critical issues, I may have to have that, please, leeway.
Yeah, that's why I said, perhaps if you read your statement and if you want to supplement here and there, you may do so, yeah.
I note that, Chair.
Thank you.
So let's go. I think I've dealt with the system of delegations then. Because those are the essential issues. The system of delegations, the Remuneration Committee, and the Commission of the delegations of October 20th. So let's move to that. If I can then guide to page 9, let me see if I can go through that. I've dealt with it. It also talks to the system of delegations here. The only important part here on page 10 is the fact that when Mr. Ngiza relied on the delegations of Dr. Mojapelo, by that stage, the system of delegations for the city, in terms of Section 59, overrode all of the previous delegations. And then there's also the financial delegations, because the way it's structured, financial delegations come in annually, and you revise it annually, and the HOD in that department must grant that. So, Chair, then to come in then on page 41, page 11, paragraph 41, I just want to touch briefly on that letter but I think why I'm concerned about that letter, Chair, I've looked at the record, and I think the Chair also went to try and understand the process of why I would be brought into a process. Chair, for me, it emanates from the findings or the discussions of EMPD. And one of the main complaints from the EMPD police officers in that meeting were about a very disproportionate process of disciplinary proceedings. And they mentioned Mr. Ngiza. And I think we also spoke about Umkashe. He was labeled as Umkashe. And for me, from my colloquial learning in KZN, is Ukosha. I'm chasing you, And I don't think it is imperative upon any employee, irrespective of where you are, to be labeled as a person who chases. That means you don't follow protocol. You don't follow processes. So that is where it comes very important to say that city manager, between HOD, HR, and city manager, they looked at those. I was not part of the meeting, but he brought me in to say, but how do we improve this So if you look at the document there, previously to the 22nd of, it had 3 categories. It had a category for a further investigation. It had a category for internal hearing, and then it had a category for the disciplinary tribunal. So my engagements, Chair, and to try and understand, I think one of the questions you posed then on this issue, I'm dealing with then page 11, Chair. One of the questions you posed, but how did he manage with all of these issues, because you have over 1,000 matters? And Chair, it was not easy for me. But the accounting officer is looking at the institution being saved from labor disputes, being saved from the possible further occurrence of what happened last year. And these things are boiling, Chair. It was boiling at the MPD. And when I applied, so it was an extra leg where I don't want to say I don't sleep, but I worked till even midnight. I'm up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock sending emails. That is my pattern, my work pattern that I've been having. Because to ensure that when you do this, when you do the decision, take a decision to suspend and to, from a compliance perspective and to disciplinary, the witnesses who are there are available. Because a lot of the cases that we've been losing, at the last minute, the witnesses are either giving evidence for the other side, or they're not even coming to those forums, wherever it is. So, Chair, I have been doing that even until the internal suspension on the 2nd of December. I was, on the last day, I was still doing these matters that were allocated to me. It was not a matter of taking any function away from anybody. The HOD of the department would go, will do his prima facie. I think there was discussions around the prima facie determination. That was the HOD. If the allegations come against him, it then came to me to say, can you support this? What do I need for further investigation? And that is where my role would have come in even before. The way I applied myself in that Makunazi matter came through here. So my role, Chair, on page 11 at the bottom, to review investigative files for legal sufficiency, to advise where additional evidence or clarification is required. And that is what my entire role was in the matter of Mr. Henny Rasmus. And again, it was purely focused on the risk to the city. What would be the risk of merely going on and not taking the safeguards? And I know I was alleged to have been a super HOD. It was never anywhere a super HOD, Chair. It was about me applying my compliance eye and the risk issues to try and say that, but where do we mitigate against the city? City has no money, Chair. I've got a WhatsApp message to say that we have no funds. I'll try and pay the advocates next week. How do you do that? You have a budget allocated. How can you say you don't have funds? So this is where, and at all the committees that I've been attending to over the last year or two, every time they've been saying, but what are we doing to mitigate the legal costs? And we've put in measures to mitigate the legal costs. And these are some of the measures to say, let us ensure that as we go forward, we have everything in a row so that we know that if we lose, it's based on what we could not produce and how we dealt with our case in the court, not where things we could have addressed internally. Then let's go to 13, Chair, if I may. Response to allegations, alleged interference in the disciplinary process of Brigadier Makunazi. Chair, I spoke about being pressured on the settlements of the Chief of Police. When the matter came to me, I said it was towards the end of May for the extension of suspension. Chief of Police came and saw me on the 21st of June 2022, and he then sends me a letter dated the 21st of June 2022, but served on my office and my PA on the 22nd of June. I was unfortunately not at work from that date. I only came back to the office the following Tuesday because of court matters and so on.
Mr. Behari,
yes.
Your statement at paragraph 53 says the 21st of June 2023, and I think you've just said 2022, if I heard you properly.
Yeah, it was, Chair, yes, sorry, it's the 21st of June 2023, Chair. Okay. It was that letter I think it was preceded by a letter, or maybe at the same time, to Brigadier Makunazi to say, I'm withdrawing the investigation. That was also on the same day, 21st of June, 2023. And then there's a letter dated 21 June 2023, addressed to me. Thank you for that, Commissioner. It is further alleged that I pressured the Chief of Police to hand over the investigation document. Chair, the document was with me when Mr. Erasmus brought that to discuss initially. He took it back, and then Chief of Police came back with the document. So it's not as if I applied my mind only on the 21st when I had a meeting with the Chief. And there was never a time where I said that the case must be terminated and because of alleged lack of merit. This is purely incorrect, Chair. Now, I just want to touch with your indulgence, Chair. I give advice in the following ways in the city. An HOD would call me. An HOD would approach me, even in other meetings. An HOD would come to my office and they would ask me, and I said, all I did was guide the HOD. I'll guide the HOD to say, can you look at this? I've looked at the stuff, let's look at that, add this, and so on. If there's a formal request for an opinion, I decide now, do we do it internally, because then I refer it to the divisional heads, or do I go externally and appoint counsel or attorneys for that? So this was one of the matters where Erasmus came to me. I looked at documents. Chief of Police came to me on the 21st. I looked and I guided Chief. But in the way I guided Chief, I do not know whether he understood that perhaps it's going to implicate him in the way I was asking the questions. And then decides, we're not going to take it further. Because that last engagement I had was on the 22nd or the 21st with Chief, and thereafter the letter came in. And I had nothing further about that until 2 years later, when this issue came up before General Makunazi.
Just clarification. You say you don't know whether the chief realized when he came to you that it was going to implicate him. Well, can you just expand on that?
Yes, thank you.
How is he implicated? Because it's not clear from a statement what you're talking about.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So, Commissioner, when I discussed the matter with both Henny Erasmus and the Chief, and I looked at the Chief and I said to him, Chief, the issue with Brigadier Makunazi seems to stem from a relationship developed at the State of the City address, or even before. At the State of the City address, in the documents that you provided, there was an operational plan, Chief. Your signature is there. But, Chief, in his way, he listened to me. He listened. But he would not say one way or the other, to say, I'm responding this way. So I said to him, Chief, firstly, the State of the City address involved, from what I understood in his own report, he found that there were people who were not supposed to be there, who were from companies who were not on our appointed list of security companies. He found dangerous situations there because there were snipers in that environment. Who then would have briefed the Mayor, Tanya Campbell, who was our first citizen? We had members of the public on the day being there, because the SOCA is one of the most important events in a city.
Can I just interrupt you? My question was just to understand, implicate him in what way, before you moved on too much.
Implicating him to the extent that he has not applied the due diligence that he ought to have done to protect the citizens, to protect the first citizens, and in terms of that. Because that is where the implication is.
Thank you.
And then furthermore, Chair, the engagements with Chief and Erasmus were about, let's look at your witnesses that you have. The one witness being Christine, who talks about I think he referred to him to the blue lights. So, Chair, I'm still on now dealing with the allegations from page 13 onwards. dealing with the allegations of Christine and the blue lights, and also the transfer of those vehicles, the donations. Chair, that donations was totally contrary, non-compliant with our system of delegations. I think that has been canvassed here, and I will support that. But what was critical in terms of what, and I asked Chief, but Steyn says that were you in EMPD and the Fleet Department, which was a leg of transport, were you bypassing this matter all the time? Because Steyn refers to other such instances when there was, even from provincial government, when there were donations done by way of a letter. And Steyn, who was a proxy in the matter, deals with all issues, clearly stated that Mkonazi came to him, he had the vehicles to donate. And then I said to Chief, but that is why it's going to go back to where? Who was involved? When did Mkonazi meet with CAT VIP services, and what were the engagements? And what were the involvements of the senior leadership in the EMPD? So apart from implicating the Chief, it would implicate the divisional heads, or the deputy chiefs of police in critical matters pertaining to the state of the city. What was the knowledge? What did you brief the mayor about? It cannot be that Brigadier Mkonazi would brief the mayor on critical issues. Why would he be doing that? Why would you have allowed that to have taken place? What is the issues of the driving? Who was driving the vehicles on the day? So all of these issues, as it became it seemed to be me probing, but it was about, Chief, do you understand that it'll come back to you in terms of what you knew? How do you understand what you should have done, what you ought to have done? The witnesses were basically Steyn, and it was Gwabe. Gwabe was a divisional head who received apparently a donation of 300,000 for books. And then I said to the Chief, but if you look at Gwabe's report, and if you look at Steyn's report, they speak about the resources that were required. Even if you correlate that back to what Ocker Besaidenote mentioned, for essential police officers, for the vehicles, patrol vehicles, there were none. The bullets, there were none. Bulletproof vests, there were, well, I can't say none, but I mean, it was depleted resources. The college from Gwabe, there was the college, and what would the impact be if you could not get the 300,000 to pay? Chair, again, the process is totally incorrect. But the fact is, Chief, did you know about these lack of resources? And did you deal with finance? Because when did you approach finance for these resources? Because patrol vehicles are very important in protecting 4 million residents, not to even speak about the other residents or people that transit the area. But these are some of the discussions we've had here. So both Chief of Police and Mr. Erasmus could not give me the issues, because if I looked at it and I applied my mind, I'm saying that if Gwabe is called as a witness and he says this, it means he was the one who did not follow. He ought to have said to Brigadier Mkonazi, but why are you bringing this? This is wrong. Go back to the Chief of Police, do a proper process, send it to legal for vetting, and let it go to the city manager. Same with the vehicles. Even the MMC, Masuku, came about and she raised concerns to say, but why? How can we not have vehicles? The police officers are going to the patrol sites with the private vehicles. What is the shooting? What is this? So these issues were raised by the MMC even prior to that. So those are some of the issues I captured. And then Steyn's one for me was very glaring in terms of, Steyn also said a separate statement where he says that there was no blue lights. There was no blue lights fitted on the vehicles. Now, I do know that the vehicles were transferred to the city of Ekurhuleni. I think it was for a day or two until Brigadier Spies raised certain concerns and overturned that. But there was a transfer for a minimal period. So the cost there, which was a lot of later saw, was about 200 Rand per vehicle to transfer the vehicles. But the entire process, if you go into the process of that, Chair, it's more than that. Transferring the vehicles is one thing, and showing the documents. You're not even showing for vehicles that are older than 3 years. Where's the certificate of acceptability or certificate of compliance? Your roadworthy certificates. Where are these documents? Because if you go into an open environment, Chair, and where there's a shop steward or attendants on the other sides, these will be issues that I think. So are we not putting ourselves at risk in terms of we're going ahead with it? We're not investigating the other role players. Even the chief, your statement about what you knew of that. I saw a letter where you say, I think it was, Chair, and I'll be corrected. There was a letter dated the 31st of March 2023, 2022. That was after the State of the City. Sorry, State of the City was 22. The next day, after the chief observed all of these issues, he wrote a letter, I think, to Mzolo. Mzolo was the direct in charge of Brigadier Mkonazi. And I could not see anything to say, but Mzolo, I want a full meeting. I want to know what is happening here, because the State of City address, you can't ask somebody for a written response. There should have been an engagement and to say, bring all the parties together. I want to know, because what would have happened had one of those snipers killed one of the people attending there? And we know now from the evidence here, Ekurhuleni is becoming a place of peace, but unfortunately, what is happening in Ekurhuleni is not. So these are some of my concerns that I've raised here, because then I will have a separate claim to deal with if somebody was killed, even if the executive mayor was killed. So, and my concern was, but did you only rely on a operational plan, which has now been stated to be said it was forged? But when the other engagements from at least 2 weeks, a month before, 2 weeks before, a week before, and daily before the SOCA, that I would think is when you're applying your full powers. So hence, Commissioner Baloyi, sorry, in that long-winded thing, but to show that it was not a matter of just saying, Brigadier did this, he donated vehicles, he brought donations in, he put it blue lights. This was, for me, look at the full landscape of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with serious implications from CAT VIP services, from Medicare 24, and how they even got, even COVID-19. If they were involved in COVID-19, there was a program run by HR. Because in terms of the staff letters that go off, those were all dealt with between HR and the department involved. So, Chair, I just want to move on then for the purpose of, but I think we've got the crux of what I'm trying to achieve. Gwabe as well didn't take the responsibility he should have on page 14, paragraph 58, Chair. He ought to have sent it back to Brigadier and said, no, follow the process. But apparently those cadets would not have qualified. It would have caused a different problem if that happened. So, Chair, on page 15, page 68, with that, I totally reject the fact that I pressured him to hand over the docket and stopped all processes. The next time the docket was referred to was when there was a BX mail, a Bixi email, and then the forensic investigators got involved. I raised that because I am the Deputy Information Officer in terms of POPIA. And if there was credibility, bring forward, even if it's to council, send it through. But when you start to do that, and if later on, if time permits or as I'm permitted, Chair, we can go into the details of that BX email. But what I did was raise my concerns as a Deputy Information Officer to the Office of City Manager. She called in the Chief Audit Executive at that stage, and then they proceeded further with the appointment of that. But, Chair, I don't get offended if a department head doesn't take my opinion. Because they do that with a full understanding that I will not be called in to defend the position later on. It happened in quite a few matters. Even external senior counsel give an opinion. That opinion is rejected. We spend money on the external legal counsel. And one of the such matters, is that, which came to a head, I think, in the report of Dr. Zweli Mkhize. My apologies, Chair.
Sorry, Chair. I note that it's 11 o'clock. Might we take the tea adjournment?
Please hold your thought, Mr. Behari. Let's resume at 11:15. Let's adjourn.
Okay.
Chani Zansi, Ikamalam Guzanel, but you can simply call me Uzanel Mtombeni. I am your new host, Konayi Ekaslami, the TV show that profiles some of your absolute faves, celebrities. I'm talking when an actor, musician, bona, politician, Benegan, Zonke Bonke Zikona, and we take them to Ekasi and find out who exactly they were before all the glitz, glam, lights, cameras, and action. Oh, bye, Uzi. Uzi, mutakulayo.
Ekaslami, Tuesday at 6 on SABC 1. Mzansi for sure.
Makoti Down Products is a proudly South African family business, started more than 30 years ago with 12 geese and a piece of material. Makoti manufactures duvets, pillows, sleeping bags, and high-quality Egyptian cotton linen. Our down products are suitable for people with dust mite allergies and come with a lifelong guarantee. And we offer a nationwide cleaning service for all your feather and down products. Visit us at makoti.co.za or call us on 041 9922395. For quality down, Makoti Down.
South Africa's leading fuel company, Engen, part of the Vivo Energy Group, will be at the Investing in African Mining Indaba, showcasing how partnership and technology are reshaping modern mining. From secure fuel and lubricant supply to AI-enabled equipment monitoring and predictive maintenance, Engen and Vivo Energy are helping mining operations improve uptime, manage costs, and build long-term resilience. Visit the Engen and Vivo Energy stand Q38 at the Mining Indaba 2026, where smarter mining meets stronger partnerships, because mines are always moving, we're always moving.
As the nation seeks answers, SAFM brings you live, uninterrupted coverage of Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee investigating allegations made by KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. You can also stay up to date with the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into criminality, political interference, and corruption in the criminal justice system. Stay informed, stay connected. Tune in live on SAFM 104 to 107 and follow the coverage across our digital platforms live on Facebook, X, and YouTube at SAFM Radio. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Welcome to it. This is season 1 of Playlist happening right here at Maloka, and believe me, it's a party.
Set your reminder every Friday, 9 p.m. Playlist at Maloka is in the building.
Sangonani Vimelang Absheni Lochani Zansi, Ikamalam Guzanel, but you can simply call me Uzanel Mtombeni. I am your new host, Konayi Ekaslami, the TV show that profiles some of your absolute faves, celebrities. I'm talking when an actor, musician, bona, politician, Benegan, Zonke Bonke Zikona, and we take them to Ekasi and find out who exactly they were before all the glitz, glam, lights, cameras, and action. Oh, bye, Uzi. Uzi, mutakulayo.
Ekaslami, Tuesday at 6 on SABC 1. Mzansi for sure.
The Talking Point on SAFM. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 11:11. Welcome to the third and final hour of the Talking Point. Let's talk about the mining Indaba now before we have to go back to the Madlanga Commission. The annual Invest in Africa Mining Indaba kicks off today, Monday, at the Cape Town International Convention Centre under the theme Stronger Together, Progress Through Partnerships. Stakeholders in the sector gather to discuss the challenges, the solutions in mining on the African continent, and global operations consulting firm DSS Plus has been examining how mining companies are responding to how the mining operating environment is becoming more volatile due to climate disruption, which affects water availability, directly affecting productivity, costs, and safety, while the demand for minerals increases. To talk more about the balancing act on issues of safety and mining companies, and the mining companies, are faced with. We're joined on the line by Jacques Buerta. Jacques is principal consultant at DSS Plus, and his focus is on safety. Jacques, good morning. Thank you for your time. Set the scene for us, seeing your focus is on safety. Set the scene for us regards safety in a volatile operating environment, as I just said in that intro.
Good morning. Hope you're doing well. So, here from Cape Town at the Mining Indaba. And you're 100% correct. 2026 in African mining is really about being stronger together. And, of course, facing that level of volatility is different than anything we've experienced before. As we look at organizations, currently, fatalities have steadily increased. But the problem is that when it comes to serious injuries and high potential events, these are not decreasing, which tells us really that the risk landscape is shifting significantly. This we can see in climate disruption, which become a daily reality. Production pressure, complexity is rising. Of course, the investors and ESG stakeholders, the scrutiny is growing within. And, all of this obviously ripples through into the organization, which creates an impact on safety, where organizations need to be more resilient in how they approach risk.
Yeah. And what does that volatility look like specifically on the ground in specifically South African mines?
So that volatility plays out in a number of ways. Water scarcity is definitely one of the key things, and water scarcity ripples through in terms of how organizations manage dust, how they manage heat stress underground. Of course, the other side of the coin is also around flash flooding, which can have impact on fall of ground slope failure stability. But, the reality is really simple. Ultimately, it's the frontline workers that face some of these risks, and they bear the immediate physical risks. And ultimately, when risks start shifting this quickly, organizations need to respond to it much more proactively.
Yes. And when we talk of the workers, the day-to-day workers, how are the issues of climate disruption, the issues of production pressure and investor scrutiny changing the day-to-day safety risks for these workers?
So, very good question. Obviously, your frontline on the day-to-day, where historically they had risks which were much more predictable, we find that these risks constantly change, which means your risk perception needs to constantly change, and of course your risk profile constantly change. So where we were much more predictable in how we help our frontline to be safe, we really need to think about more agile ways to really support the frontline to be able to make the right decisions at the right time to be able to mitigate these risks.
So these safety incidents, are they increasingly linked to systemic pressure rather than isolated human error?
So what we found historically, especially in the mining industry, is that there has been a big focus on shifting the causes of incidents towards human behavior. But one always needs to ask the question, why do people behave in the way that they do? And foundationally, if you go and look at many of the root causes behind it, these are very much embedded in our systems, but also very much embedded in leaders and how leaders drive the right culture in the organization.
Yeah. Let's have a conversation now about the specific issues around climate risk as a direct safety threat.
Yes, Mr. Behari, I'm sure you've not forgotten where you were. I said, please hold your thoughts, so you are sure to remember.
Thank you, Chair.
But may I perhaps just try again? Please try to read. I think we'll go quicker that way. But as I said, if you feel like substantiating here and there, feel free to do so. But please read.
Thank you. Council has briefed me as well. I'm grateful for that as well.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Chair, then I think we can move on to page 16. Alleged failure to act in relation to 6 EMPD officers arrested for extortion. I think, Chair, for me, the one incident that I recall, I don't know if it's the same amount of, is it 120,000 or 80,000? But it involved a Sergeant Shirinda, and Sergeant Shirinda was, when he was charged, he was already in my assisting as a protector after I've received certain threats and so on. So he was there. So when he was arrested, Chair, the only part of mine is that it's an HR function to discipline. I don't get involved in to act in any respect of that. What happens is when EMPD officers, because of the history of EMPD officers who go on raids or whatever the work is, and if they're arrested, there is a situation to say that if you need legal services, we assist, because then you're not going to get EMPD officers wanting to go out at night or at any stage. And this happened before with Chief of Police Mapias approached me, and I said, Chief, give me the facts and then we look at it. So when this incident happened, and there was a I don't know if a Captain Magagula from the IPID, and it was all over the news and so on in arresting them. So I don't play a role in that. But I did assist in terms of to secure that no other EMPD officers don't want to go out and do stuff. To say, give them the legal, let them follow the services. It's not something that has not been done before, and it is within our capacity. We do allow them that space. The HR functions, what the HR do about it, whether they decide to wait for the criminal conviction or go ahead with that is entirely. And one of the most tricky things was Magagula in the bail application, when it was delayed, the process was delayed. He raised another issue to use in the bail application to say, no, they're also going to be, I'm charging them on another matter, or they've been charged on another matter, only to later find that the DPP declined to prosecute. So he used information that was already finalized to try and stifle the bail proceedings. So those are some of the things we get involved. But I'm reported by that, so I'm not involved. But Shirinda has since been taken away from my profile. When he was with me, I had no issues. He's excellent in terms of what services he rendered while he was with me. On page 18, Chair, alleged failure to respond to a complaint by the community liaison officer implicating Brigadier. Chair, the only matter I'm aware of here is the one of the grievance that was raised by Colonel Tepa. Now, Colonel Tepa, apparently she was moved from her position. The unit was disbanded. But that is a process between the city manager, the chief of police. When I engaged in the grievance proceedings, I had formal grievance proceedings. I've got a record of my outcome as well. And only to be told by Mr. Ivan Duplessis that no, it was not the Brigadier Mkunazi who was acting chief of police. It was not his decision. It was the decision of Chief of Police Mapieye to disband. So I had nothing. I looked at the grievance. I said, but you're taking a grievance against Brigadier Mkunazi, whereas the actual decision was taken by Chief of Police together with the city manager. So I did the formal process for that was followed, Chief. So I deny that I ignored that, the process. And in fact, she was also represented by a union from Imatu. And I said to them, take it more serious. If you're not happy with the grievance, you can take it on further. Alleged unlawful participation in the restructuring of the disciplinary and grievance processes. Chair, I think I've spoken to that already. It goes to that where I'm saying, Chair, nothing was unlawful. It was within the realm of the city manager to do that. And my role just came in an added compliance function. Alleged abuse of labor processes to frustrate or remove certain employees. Chair, this, I deny any reference. I mean, the labor processes are there. They're well documented. Everything we did was within the Labor Relations Act. Mr. Nida raised a unfair suspension and an unfair labor practice act, unfair dismissal application. That was before the bargaining councils. So I think it's one of the questions you posed as well, Chair, but it's not in the HR space. And those were the processes that I had to follow. Nida, we couldn't find, if you look at even in this, if I refer to there was, which he provided the commission was an NQF level 8. He says, I have the qualification. And he shows an NQF level 8 labor involvement. I think I have a copy as well, Chief. It's on the annexure bundle, page 32, if I'm not mistaken, Chief. Well, apologies, it's from page 28 CV, 31. On page 31 of that annexure bundle, Chair, I've also attached it to my bundle, Chair. To motivate the fact that he had a qualification, he refers to an NQF level 8 advanced labor law. Now, Chair, that is contrary to what the requirements of the advert were. The advert spoke about the B Juris or an NQF level 7 with labor law and others as specialized subjects. Then he used this NQF level, higher level, to say, no, I'm valid within this point to get the job. He gave the Commission an NQF level 8. This NQF level 8 certification only came to the attention of the HOD and during the processes in about March 2024. So this comes back from 2009 when he supposedly obtained the... Now, Chair, on his HR file, we did a vetting in 2021 of all the employees to look at ghost employees and so on. On his employment file, I think it's important that I just touch on that and then we move on, Chair. Page 36, page 38 of that bundle, you can see the University of South Africa Advanced Labor Law, NQF level 7. So the NQF level 8 was 48 credits. The NQF level 7 was 24 credits for the same what do I say? I can't even call it a qualification, but it seems to be a unit standard towards a qualification at NQF level 7. So these are the things we were dealing with, Chair, when we decided to start looking at how do we recover, because if somebody defrauded the city or any institution, then it's an obligation for me to recover. You know, so those are the seven issues, and we couldn't get a direct answer from him. In fact, we were about to go to the UNISA to say, sort out the discrepancy, because even a letter from a professor from university spoke to an NQF level 7 course at 24 credits, which is used to say that he has that qualification in terms of the advertisement. So on Mr. Nida's is on page 23, Chair. I think I've completed that. If I may move on. Mr. Rivo's piece, Chair, with your permission, on page 25. Chair, Rivo's piece and I, decop Rivo's piece, I've never had an issue with it. The only issue that arose as a result of the investigation into Sintel. Sintel involves almost 100 million rands, which we're still trying to get. I'm trying to get figures from the Chief Financial Officer and the department. I can't understand why, because we need to do the correlation. Why is there a reluctance to give us that information? I see City of Johannesburg also now recently terminated the Sintel investigation. They were this back office fines administration people. Rivo's piece was the project manager of that. So Chief of Police in 2024, June, came to me, they were trying to get extensions. But we've been saying, but don't have evergreen contracts. You can't have a company.
Can you please explain what these Sintel traffic fines were?
Okay.
Or the Sintel traffic fine system? What exactly was that?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So Sintel was a group appointed by the city so that they, when there's cameras in the road or you're doing your 341s, notices, you know, in terms of your fines that you would be getting, there would be the fines administration part. They would be involved in collecting fines, and then there is a portion in terms of the agreement that they would withhold, and then they'll pass the rest off to the city, and then the city has a relationship with province in terms of the Road Traffic Act and all of those legislation for the administration of fines. Now, it came to a stage where the contract was coming to an end. The city decided that, you know what, we're paying too much money to Sintel, and then Sintel had already set up their own collection review, the My City. I think you can see it's My City or My Pay app, which is now linked to this R2 systems where you can be paying. Now, I was interested in the losses to the city because of the correlation. Are they accurately reflecting to the city what they should have been doing?
And you also referred to an unexplained withholding of revenues. Who was withholding the revenues?
Sintel, in the one matter where we found that the contract was extended and internally they...
all I needed was,
okay,
because this is in the context of what Commissioner Rivers is being disciplined.
Yes.
So I wanted to know whether the withholding is alleged to have been by him or whether it is alleged to have been by Sintel.
Chair,
So you say it was Sintel.
I say Sintel, he was the project manager. He needed to get all the funds, total accounting before that contract exited.
All right. No, that's enough. I just wanted to, is it Sintel or was it Commissioner
All right.
Space?
No, thank you, Chair.
Sintel. Thank you. Please
But
continue.
nonetheless, yes, the Sintel is still outstanding, and we're busy with that, Chair. On Colonel Kelebogile Tepa, as I've mentioned already, I think, it was basically the issue of transfer, of her transfer, but that was done between the Chief of Police, City Manager, and I dealt with a brief of it. On Mapia, Chair, as I said, there was a lot of engagements because it was quite serious. For me, it is sexual harassment. I've dealt with it. There was political involvement by Mr. Itzhak Berg, who was the party leader of Independent Ratepay, IRASA, and Tanya Campbell, Mayor Campbell, and there's a councillor called Pretorius, Brandon Pretorius. So it ends up saying, linking to the executive mayor. So it was not the entire council, that there were a few pockets of who were trying to exert control in terms of chief of police. And even on the settlements, and then the non-paying of attorneys, because hoping, and the effect was, by non-paying these attorneys, despite promises to pay them, there was a withdrawal from there, and which you can't blame the advocates for. And that has caused us another problem in terms of finalizing the disciplinary process of the Chief of Police. On page 28, 6.6, alleged improper involvement in the forensic investigation. So the BX emails, I've touched on it already. I am the Deputy Information Officer for Popia, with huge fines that can be raised because of what was the content. I raised that as a concern. The city manager then called through the chief audit executive, and they appointed, so I was never involved in the appointment and so on. I only participated thereafter in terms of any information that was required by the investigators. So my role was limited to the fact that I was concerned about the content of the email, and thereafter I raised it, escalated it, and received the report thereafter. Thank you, Chief. On page 30, Chair, alleged failure to adequately address a grievance of Colonel Tepa. Again, that's been done. I have addressed it. I set in a grievance formal process. I have finalized the outcome, which was finding that the Chief of Police was the one that actually did that transfer. Alleged support of city manager in the usurpation of powers under Section 64C of the SAPS Act. Chair, I just want to spend time on this. This is, for me, even at local government level, it's still a problem at all municipalities, because there's no clear-cut data to say that you are at EMPD or a police department of the metro. You know, all those SAPs and the provincial MEC and so on have an impact on the establishment. But once that happens, there's a lot of issues that fall. So I did not at any stage usurp any powers of the chief or assist in any usurpation of powers. The 64C2B of the Act provides that the executive head of the municipal service is responsible for the recruitment. I agree with that. The executive head being the chief of police. But sir, there's a hybrid role. The executive head in terms of the SAPS Act for EMPD, but he's also an HOD in terms of Section 56 appointment. HODs at our level, we do not get involved in the appointment. The most, to the extent I would get involved maybe with the divisional head or the deputy chief of police, and maybe even the executive manager, but not at any lower levels. So as much as I hear what Chief says, overall he's in charge, and he has to approve the appointments and so on. But from my side, and even in my response that I drafted, I even say, I recognize that there could have been things happening. Let's do a policy that could set out very clearly who you deal with. HR will deal with the issues in terms of, I as an HOD, I don't get involved. Chief of Mapia was an HOD as well in terms of 56, but he had the dual role as an ED, Executive Director in terms of SAPS Act. So it was a dual function, and with the respect of powers of SAPS Act, but also respect of the MFMA and the City and the Systems Act. and all the
Advocate
legislation.
Behari, I got confused when you said he doesn't get involved, but overall he has to approve. What do you mean by the last part, overall he has to approve?
Okay.
And in the context of the question you are dealing with, if he did not approve, would that be irregular?
Chair, remember at the level of below the divisional head, maybe below the executive manager, you would have, the chief would not be directly involved in the interview process and so on. But then when the appointments come through, he should be the one approving. Even in my instance, if there's junior staff members, they will come to me to say, okay, this is what, and you can't go against what the interview panel said because you're not part of the process. So that is where I'm saying, yes, overall, he has the approving authority to say, I'm approving this, but not, and so on. But generally it comes from appointment of a panel that he appoints. So the panel does the work, and then he looks at the work done and the report, and then he says, I'm approving it. If I'm not approving it, then he'll say, I'm not approving it based on these issues that I find. So that is the process.
So if he gets told after the event that 60-odd people have been promoted or several other people have been appointed to positions, would that be irregular because he would not have approved that?
That's irregular, Chair, because he should have come to his knowledge to say, I've appointed all of these people. As I said, I've appointed all of these staff members, and then he would have then had the thing to say, okay, but what is this? He could have done that. So he's the head of that in that respect. The SAPS Act, I trust everything. You're satisfied with that, Chair? Can I move on? And I did recognize his authority, and hence I crafted, Chief, let's get together and do a policy that be very clear that nobody can do this in the future in terms of what happened. Alleged improper upward adjustment. Okay, I think we've dealt with that, Chair. Alleged improper involvement of a draft response to IPID. Chair, and I think I'm also grateful to my evidence leader to give me the last document in the bundle, which was the email from me to Linda Naika. Chair, there was a draft. My role in the legal department, again, is to say, when we hear of anything on fraud and corruption, we go and engage on it, say, where's the fraud and corruption? What do we do? Because I've got obligations to MPAC, I've got obligations to the city, because if the employee decides then I'm going to withdraw, resign, they resign quickly and they take away the salaries and the pension and so on. And then we're sitting with basically not being in a position to recover any impact of fraud and corruption. That report from IPID was addressed to the Chief Mapie. It went in a meeting to the mayor and to the MMC, held by different role players in IPID. It didn't come through the administration. All other reports come, whether it's public report, public protector, SIU, all those reports come to the officer, the administration officer, and that's when I get involved. I mean, there's been an instance when even a public protector report, I had taken on review, and we were successful with the review. So that is my role, to say, what are we doing? Because it's not about finding only faults, it's about concretizing such that we don't leave loopholes in terms of later on proceeding with that. But at no stage it had any implication on me stopping or not proceeding with that. My role and my team's role. So you will see the letter which was described as nonsensical. Now I needed to know, I mean, we dealt with only the definitions in terms of what we found, and what were the definitions in terms of fraud, and what were the definitions in terms of PRECA. So when I received the report, I gave it to my divisional head. He's a seasoned prosecutor, more than 7 to 8 years. I said to him, Njabulo, look at the definitions and see how can we link these matters to that. So he drafted a document, which I sent to the city manager to say this is a draft. That document never went out, Chair. It was portrayed, and I don't know how, because it was never a finalized document. In our meeting with, so city manager, after receiving the document from the mayoral office, called a meeting with a person called Kanye, Osborne Kanye. So when Osborne Kanye was in the meeting with city manager, I happened to be in my office and they called me up. And I had engaged him. I said, but in all of this aspect, why don't you arrest him? No, but he says, if you look at, because I'm confused by your saying here, you say proceed with disciplinary. However, the matter is with the DPP. See, I don't know if my understanding is that when you say however, you try and put a different spin on what you said above. So you're saying to me, proceed with the disciplinary, but it's not for me, because Chief had the item for the disciplinary. It was for me to look at what I'm saying and the question in the meeting with Kanye says, but you say, however, the matter is with the DPP for decision. So when are you? He said, no, we'll inform you. I'll give you an information. So my draft was, we're always proactive in the department. And I said to the DH, please, but do not send it out because there is, even that letter, I still have to correct certain aspects. For example, they say I was at a meeting with the mayor. I was not in that meeting. Right. And I heard the issue of the word suggest. Chair, I don't want to get into a link, but I'm saying that from my understanding, it was not a definite, because if you say, however, it means I must consider the fact that there's something at the DPP. And what also gives me, when I look at Niza's statement, Niza's statement, when it deals with the Erasmus report in the first one, internal, he says that during April, before he signed off, during April, he had a meeting with Chief of Police. I've got it here. I can refer to for expediency. He says that he was informed that there was imminent arrest from IPOD, which included Julius Mukunasi. So I'm saying, but you still went on then in April, and he mentions the issue of fruitless, wasteful expenditure. But on the 30th of May, did he decide then to go ahead with that investigation or with the disciplinary process? Or whatever other process it is. But this is what Kanye told us. He says, no, we're not finalized with the process. So that was in a draft form. It was never a document. I only shared the document with Mr. Philip Rakhwale when, apart from the city manager's office, when he came and he was doing it, he says, but what were the engagements with IPOD? And I said, no, there's our draft document. How that was shared to Niza now, to make it look as if it's a final document. Of course, if we didn't go get the full information, it would be nonsense because we were looking at fraud and corruption. I didn't stop any of the HR discipline. If you wanted to go ahead, go ahead. What has happened to the issue of IPOD telling you that there were imminent arrests? IPOD never had imminent arrest, or never arrest at all, even up to now. So, Chair, that is where, on that part. So I never improperly involved myself in that. For me, firstly, the draft was not improper because we were preparing it as a draft document, looking at the documents, which will be finalized when the IPOD has responded. I've never signed off on it being the issues that Niza mentioned about me conveniently taking leave and so on. Chair, for me, it's a non-issue. I was on special leave or on family responsibility leave. You don't plan for family responsibility leave when you want to defer, and that's available on my leave records. Okay, Chair, the rest of it talks about that leakage and so on. If we can go, then permit me, Chair, page 39. Allegations are directed EMPD officers who serve documents on Mr. Gneza. Chair, I'm not involved in any service of any documents. That is a function of HR and EMPD. Why would I do this? I wouldn't even do this on my worst enemy. Not that I have any, I don't know if any enemies that I do have. But why would I do that? Because this is an issue that talks about your integrity. It talks about the way people there. And I hear him. I mean, he's got a right to complain. But I was not part of that process, Chair. General allegation of implicated other unlawful conduct. Chair, I looked at this regard. I went about this quite a few times since whenever it happened. I can't understand any other unlawful conduct that I'm aware of. Safe to say that I have been under huge pressure because of my approach in compliance in the city. And my conduct is not unlawful in the way of that. For example, Chair, if I may, quickly, I think we're at the end now. Chair, I raised objections to Berg, the mayor, Tanya Campbell, and Pretorius interfering in the processes. To such an extent that after the withdrawal of our attorneys because of non-payment, the attorney for Mapiyeye takes a sensitive matter, heads of arguments, a very sensitive issue concerning sensitive information, and she puts it all to all the councillors. Why would that be for all the councillors to see that this is what's happening? The issues of hacking of information. We're sitting with reports, pro-South. The Hawks matters to which I've referred have been non-existent from Hawks. I only have been working with confidence with the SIU. Many matters, pro-South matters, all involving even the current city manager. Sami building report blocked by the Kopedi because the police wanted to know who were the people involved. Grants in aid, that's a big, over 100 million involved. But that is my area in which I get involved in. All have been blocked. And that is why now I'm facing repercussions, because Nisa mentioned one thing, Chair, I can take 5 minutes to answer this. He mentioned that the only time I was involved in labor matters was when he dealt with a senior manager. That senior manager was Mojapelo. At the time, Mojapelo was a COO. I did not get instructions from the city manager to do that matter. I got instructions from my HOD at the time and the HOD HR to do. Apparently, Nisa was close to him. And as we were going through to the SIU report, we struggled with evidence because none of the witnesses from the city were forthcoming. And just when I said, no, but we have to get, and Nisa's brother, Tikek Nisa, I'm sure he's in the provincial legislature, or he was there. He's the one that's been putting the pressure on to say that, no. And I said to my HOD at the time, the only people we can call now is Tikek Nisa and Zbu Liope, because they're the ones who the evidence is pointing out benefited from this entire thing. The next time I'm here, my HOD pulls me out, he says, no, we settled the matter. So these are the things that I'm now facing a backlash. I mean, business ventures, expropriation without compensation. That matter is of interest throughout the country. I looked at the matter, how do we buy property, or expropriate property, when there's a wetland in the property? Then I was called behind to say, no, but you're not working with us. You know. And the last one, Chair, would be, the important aspect would be then, the rates, the special levy of rates for the residents of Ekurhuleni. You put in a special levy, then you only for when Tembisa's uprising happened, then you decide to go back, but your initial process of public participation was flawed. So you seek to collect an extra money from the citizens without, then they decide to go back for the public participation. And it led to them having to cancel that, which has caused a loss of about 200 million. My interest is on the citizens of Ekurhuleni, it's on the city of Ekurhuleni. I don't get involved in individual politics or individual thing. I know it's portrayed that I was close of city manager. The extent of my relationship with the city manager was as my accounting officer, and I continued calling her city manager, and that's it, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, where does that fit in the statement, just for my benefit?
Which one,
or
Chair?
were you just saying it as a by the way?
Which one, Chair?
The issue of the raids and Tembisa and the uprising.
It goes into
which section? I
it
want
goes
to
into
make
the
a note.
political interference part. Even the cases that were not pursued, I was being stifled from that. I've got details of that cases. Even when the HODs have agreed that there is criminal activities, but because I've been brought forward, the executive mayor said, "But why are you pushing with these things, Kemi?" And I've got here where the former MMC for legal. The daughter benefited about 500,000, that is the allegation, from a grants in aid fund which is meant to help the poor and destitute. So Chair, I hope, so that's part of the political interventions or political part that I've raised too. Thank you, Chair. I think that'll be...
Thank you very much, Mr. Behari.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Behari. Mr. Behari, I just wanted to go back to your statement where you deal with your position prior to your appointment as a risk and legal. That was only in 2024, correct?
Yes.
And prior to that, there was the 22 August 2023 directive by the city manager, which brought about some kind of a legal review of disciplinary matters, which effectively said that your department would review decisions to go ahead with disciplinary proceedings against senior personnel. Is that correct?
No, well, not totally. If I can just clarify that. So, when the letter of 22 August 2023 came about, it was for us to get involved in the added leg of compliance. So if you look at the form that is filled in, there's three aspects to it. One is further investigation, the other one is internal disciplinary, and then the disciplinary tribunal. So we're not involved. I can just recommend to say, in terms of additional information, I believe you should be able to secure it this way. In terms of an investigation internally, but it goes through, ultimate approver is the HOD of HR. And she relies on the input that I raised there into that matter. So that is what...
Okay, just go to paragraph 18 of your statement on page 5, where you deal with that aspect.
Yes, sir. Page 5, paragraph 18, yes.
Yes. So you say a further structural development occurred on 22 August 2023 when the city manager issued a directive introducing an enhanced compliance review step in all disciplinary grievance processes involving senior personnel. This directive required that such matters be subjected to a legal compliance assessment before charges were finalized or outcomes implemented. Its purpose was to reduce legal exposure, ensure procedural fairness, and improve the city's historically poor success rate in labor disputes.
Yeah, just on that, the one part I want to discuss, it wasn't only on senior personnel. It was basically across, I scratched it out here, but I didn't, put it on the, it was just on all personnel. And it comes from, I'm not sure exactly when that meeting happened between chief of police and city manager and so on. But it emanated thereafter on the issue, concerns about lost cases and so on. But I maybe, but that is what it concerned, adding an extra leg to say, can you look at then, and that's one of the functions I did when I was looking at the initial report by Erasmus. So we just brought in that experiences from there and brought it into the system to say, now, so the only person that was actually not there now, but it comes to the HOD. Kulani Niza was in any event, had to do whatever he did on that stage with the HOD's consent. Mine was just to bring in an added leg from a legal point of view because we deal with the cases that are lost. We deal with the cases thereafter that are to be implemented and that going to other courts. So that is where it is, Chair. But if there's anything more specific, I will...
But what weight did that legal compliance assessment have in the process of the disciplinary proceedings? So if your decision was to not continue with the disciplinary proceedings, but the HOD was of the view that there is a case, a good enough case for it to go to disciplinary, how would you resolve that conflict?
That was because it was never my role to say, in terms of approving or saying it can go to disciplinary. The HOD of the department of who raises the issue will do an internal investigation. They will do that, so that investigation will come through. It'll never stop anyone, any of the functionary, never change anything else, apart from me then coming in to say, okay, the HOD gives you the report. I will look at the report and say, right, come, do you need an internal disciplinary process? Or do you need an external process? Then I would say to the HOD, in my comments, to the HOD HR, to say, I support this, or this needs to be looked at further, can we get this information, and so on. But it was never for me, it was just to say, these are the issues I picked up. I think we can use that to tie up so that we're secure, because over the last 2 years, we've had union litigation upon litigation. And these are some of the issues that is why they brought it between HOD, HR, and myself to say, look at this. And I can never stop any disciplinary from going on. I leave it to the HOD. I said, these are the issues. Can we cure it by further investigation? By these are issues. I'll even guide that. For example, if I can, by way of an example, on the 1st of December, the matter came back about the Firearms Control Act and to charge somebody who had lost a firearm and failed to disclose. So they wanted to charge her for discipline as well. So all I said to them was, please go back, look at then who was in the control of the documents. But why your policy says there will be 3 monthly inspections. Where is that? So I asked them to get that added inspection report to say what has happened. It's just to strengthen any case that we're dealing with, but not to. I mean, the HOD HR will probably say, no, I hear you, or no, I don't agree, and she can take that decision. But from my side to say, give us an added leg of compliance in terms of that.
Okay. Now, this system only came into effect on from the 22nd of August 2023.
That's correct.
So when Mr. Erasmus approached you in May of 2023 regarding Commissioner Mkwanazi's matter, this system was not yet in place?
No, it was not.
Okay. And can I just understand, when would he have met with you? We know that the suspension, Commissioner Mkwanazi's suspension was going to lapse, the 3-month suspension was going to lapse on the 24th of May, 2023. So when would he have come to see you?
Chair, the Commissioner Erasmus, as I said, he came to me. If it was like for me preparing an exact time, I would have, knowing about this further, I would have said to you. But it was before the suspension lapsed. It was immediately, I think it was the last week or latter part of May, but before the suspension lapsed. And by that time it was too late, because if I'm looking at investigation finished March, April, NISA decides to say, okay, we're approving and he appoints then on the 30th of May. So from April to 30th of May, it's almost a month and a half. Nothing happened. And then you come into me at the last minute and say, please, can you do that? Now, as I said, Erasmus and I, we go for, a lot of the officers, HODs, senior personnel, come to me. If I'm in the office, I'll see them. I don't make appointments. The only one I've documented is when Chief of Police said to me, can I see you on the 21st? And that is when I put it down. But it's quite correct. Before the 22nd of May, there was no formal structure like this that you had to come to me. It came to me because Erasmus came to me to say, can I support an extension of the suspension from a compliance perspective? But it comes at the latter part, towards the very end of it. Even the letter from Chief of Police to me, dated 21 June, is asking for me to assist there. But by that time, and they had until July. If I look at the disciplinary code, they had until July to serve and finalize the charges. And if, for any reason, the processes were delayed, you could also ask for a further suspension or a further time of another 3 months, as provided in the disciplinary code.
Isn't that what he was coming to you for guidance on that aspect, the extension of the suspension, not the merits of the disciplinary process itself and the charges?
Counsel, when he comes to me to support an extension of a suspension, I cannot say, in light of the very serious charges that are against Mkwanazi, and I want to know who are the witnesses, because the 2 witnesses that are there must be other witnesses who will supplement a positive case. So I have to go into that. I've got to delve into that to see, but what are the other issues that would be here? It's not about this, when you come to ask me to extend the suspension, you have to tell me, but why could you not do it all this time? Because it's suspended from February. What are the issues that relate to the stage now, where you cannot, you're coming for an extension at the latter part of May? And that's when I looked at the document. Then I said to him, no, I'll have to speak to the chief as well. So that is where it was, Chair.
Okay, and when you then give him the guidance, which we will get to from page 13 on your assessment of the case, I understand you to be saying that you took the docket or the file away from him for a short period to review. So you didn't make a decision or give your view to him then and there. on that day when he saw you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
It was about 2 days, I think, 1 or 2 days. Yeah.
And apart from him, who else did you discuss the matter with before you gave him your view on the merits of the case?
Besides Chief, because he was the one who drafted the documents, and I asked these questions, the next person was the Chief of Police.
Okay, but you only meet with the Chief of Police on the 21st of June, 2023, correct?
21 June 2023, that's correct.
Yes, but Erasmus had come to you before the 24th of May, 2023. So it's about a month between the two meetings.
Yeah, okay, in terms of formal discussions, but I was given city manager, because she has an interest there, to say, city manager, we're looking at these issues. We're looking at these issues of, Erasmus is with me, I'm speaking to the Chief of Police, but that would have been a verbal communication as well. It wouldn't have been a formal matter. The only formal letter was when the email went out to Linda Naike, which is concerning the iPad update.
Okay, so you discussed it with Erasmus, the city manager, and then on the 21st of June 2023, you discussed it with the Chief of Police.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the way your statement reads, it's as though by the time you speak to the Chief of Police on the 21st of June, you had already formed an opinion on the merits of the case, because the Chief of Police, in his letter that he sends to you after that meeting, says, having discussed the matter, and he explains to you why he disagrees with your views. So you had already formed the view then before you spoke to him, correct?
It's correct, because I went through the documents. When I look at the file, I formed a view that there were certain aspects that needed to be addressed. And they linked then to the State of the City address and so on. So I formed the view. So the meeting with the Chief of Police and I would have taken under an hour. So it wasn't a long meeting. It was about an hour where I said to Chief, these are my concerns. And I think, Chief, that if we don't address these adequately, in terms of what you found at the State of the City address, because it cannot be said that it was just the issue of there's a full value chain of how CAT VIP and so on came to the office, into the city of Ekurhuleni. So let's look at those aspects. And that is where my issue was. An opinion to say, yes, these are the issues we looked at.
But did you have a discussion with the HOD HR?
No, the HOD HR at that stage, because it was still dealt with, you remember Chief deals with the disciplinaries? I had no discussion with the HOD because the extension of suspension application would be dealt with by HR. So this was between the Chief of Police and myself.
Okay.
Can I just ask? When Mr. Erasmus comes to you, or Colonel Erasmus comes to you about an extension, why did you not direct him to the HR people? Because as you correctly say, disciplinary matters are HR matters.
Yes, Chair, because it is the HR persons were already dealing with a possible extension of the suspension. He was looking for compliance comments to support in doing that. So that's why he came to me from the compliance perspective. Is there something that I could support it? Because if it goes then to the HR, it is more likely that the HR would grant a suspension. But that is when I picked up on those issues, I could not then, without having those issues addressed, grant or finalize at that stage. And I said, let's speak to the Chief of Police.
Sorry, I don't understand. You say in your statement that he came to you regarding the impending expiry of the precautionary suspension, and I understood your evidence earlier to be exactly that. He came to speak to you about an extension, or that the suspension is about to expire. What do we do?
Yeah.
I understood that to be your evidence.
Chair, my evidence, yes, in the main, but it was about trying to get compliance support from me to give him support or favorable comments to send through to the HOD, who deals with the extension. That's not my process. But to look at compliance comments, which I could support for that extension. And then when I looked at the file a day or two afterwards, or engaged with the file, and when I met him again, that is when I said to him, but you need, these are the risks I'm seeing. The extension is one issue, but how far which other witnesses are you going to get? Because when you're asking for extension, in our environment, you've got to say, which other witnesses are you still looking at getting? The first witness, Jeff Wicks, we don't know what happened to him, whether he's coming in or not, because the chief of police sent him an invite. Mgwabe seems to be not very committal about what happened there. All Mgwabe says is that he raised it with the senior management. He raised the report on the donations with the senior management. There's nothing further from there. Christine talks about certain issues of other donations dealt with this issue. And I said to him, but from a compliance perspective, the issue of nothing stops you from going on with the disciplinary. In terms of even the extension of suspension, even if the suspension occurred, there are processes in place when you're finding a matter for condonation to deal with that. And these are some of the issues that are dealt with, because if the suspension had occurred, what else could you have done? If the suspension ended, you could still go on with the disciplinary.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that you're answering my question. My question really is, when he came to you, and according to your evidence, and I think you've just confirmed it now, that he came to speak to you about the pending expiry of the suspension, you seem to have gotten into the merits, but I'm more interested in what did you say to him about the suspension? Did you say to him there are grounds to to extend it, or you're getting into the merits means you got to a point where you said, no, there's no valid basis to extend? That's what I'm trying to understand, because he's coming to ask you about extension.
Okay. Chair, there was no outcome on that. My issue was, when I looked at it, I said, Erasmus, this is where I'm looking at. Have you addressed these issues? We did not finalize that. I did not give anything to say that these are the issues. I'm not granting you the extension or not. Address the issues, Chair. Same thing with MAPIA. Address these issues.
So you discuss the merits.
I discussed the issues.
He comes to you about suspension, that's about to expire. You'd instead discuss the merits.
The merits were, with me, from a compliance perspective, Chair, I cannot devoid myself.
I'm not yet at why did you discuss the merits. I'm just trying to get the facts from your evidence.
Yes, I got into the merits.
You instead discussed the merits.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Still on the same subject. So in paragraph 54 of your statement, you mentioned the impending expiry of the suspension to which my co-commissioner, Commissioner Balo, has just referred you. And then at the top of page 14, and this is now paragraph 55, you say, I identified several material evidentiary gaps which posed a foreseeable risk to the sustainability of the disciplinary proceedings. And then at paragraph 60, you say, I regarded these gaps as significant. And then in paragraph 61, 62, 63, 64, you then say you met Colonel Erasmus and told him your views about the merits being what my co-commissioner engaged you on, Commissioner Baloyi. Now, I do not understand why you should have chosen to deal with the merits and not with what Colonel Erasmus came to you about. I understand your emphasis about your concern being compliance. You've said that umpteen times, and you said it even before Ms. Sigurd started engaging you. You emphasize that. But point is, the Colonel comes to you for specific advice on an impending expiry of the suspension. Why do you not deal with that?
Chair, I did deal with it in the sense that I'll ask him to leave the file with me. Now, for a suspension, in the labor environment, suspension is not punitive. Suspension does not stop anybody, and you cannot say that if something else comes in, nothing stops you from resuspending him. That is the processes that in our city we experience that. So I had to delve into the merits to see what...
Show me in your statement where you dealt with it, responding to Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice from you. Show me in your statement where you dealt with it. Insofar as the subject related to Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice, show me where in your statement you dealt with it.
Did I suggest... sorry, Chair, I just want to...
Show me in your statement where you dealt with it. Insofar as Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice from you, was concerned.
It's not in the statement itself. Let me go 61, 62. Please, with your indulgence, Chair. These are the engagements I've had with Colonel Erasmus verbally when he returned to me on that date. And my issue was, if you want me to extend or support an extension of the suspension, what would be the material facts that I would have to use to...
But your statement is quite detailed, Mr. Behari. Why would you leave out something that related to what he came to you about? Your statement is quite detailed. It says nothing in response to Colonel Erasmus about the extension of the suspension.
Chair, I did not finalize the process of saying to him I support it or not.
Why not?
Because I was still waiting for him to confirm to come on another date after I've seen the documents. So when I saw the documents and I discussed it with him, and I said to him, these are the issues, I need to speak to the Chief of Police, because I'm not satisfied that we will be, and these are the issues I raised.
You see, my problem is, later when you talk about the head, Commissioner Mapie, you say that by then the suspension had expired. So you were working within very short and tight timelines. You raise all of these issues. They have nothing to do with the impending expiry of the suspension. You raise all of these issues. Time is running. What do you do about the expiry of the suspension? Bear in mind, Mr. Behari, that the suspicion, false or correct, the suspicion is that you were part of a clique that was protecting Brigadier Mkhwanazi. So those who are on the other side, in quotation marks as it were, will say you let the suspension expire exactly because you are on Brigadier Mkhwanazi's quote-unquote side, as it were. Do you get the context? I come back to my question and I ask, why did you not give advice to Colonel Erasmus on the extension of the suspension? That's what he came to you about, not all of the issues that you then raised or chose to raise with him. Why did you not give him advice on what he came to you for?
Chair, Colonel Erasmus, on the second date after looking at the documents, I had to inquire, if you're going to have, you must have a reason for extending the suspension. There must be valid reasons in terms of other witnesses still to come. If he had dealt with that, he never gave me a response to my questions. Who are the witnesses? So in our engagement, if he had told me at that stage, but Mr. Behari, we bought the stuff, I need this, that would have been finalized then, Chair. He never gave me the responses to say that...
Had you taken a definitive view on what you saw as gaps, had you taken a definitive view that says there are gaps and there is no way that these gaps may be plugged? Had you taken a definitive view in that regard?
No, Chair. When I had it was a conversation with Erasmus to say, these are challenges, but tell me.
Now, if you had not taken a definitive view, surely that must mean that you had not discounted the possibility that further investigations just might plug those gaps. Is that not correct?
The further investigations, Chair, would have certainly plugged it, if those gaps. But mine was to say to Chief...
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough for mine.
It would have been, at the time, Chair, when I looked at the matter, and I said to him, but these are the concerns I have. If he said to me, no, I still need this witness and so on, during our conversation, I would have had no problem with that. Chair.
No. It could not simply have depended on what he said. You are the head of legal.
Yes.
You have just accepted now that those gaps could have been plugged. Not so. You've just said now.
No, correctly, Chair.
Now. How can you throw it back at him if you yourself think that these gaps can be plugged? Is the obvious thing to do not to actually give him time to plug those gaps, if, as you say, they were capable of being plugged? Why don't you say, my advice to you, which is what you've come to me about, is an extension of the suspension. That will give you time to plug these gaps. Was that not the obvious thing for you to do?
In hindsight, Chair, now that I hear you put it that way. In hindsight, now that I hear you say it that way.
You accept.
Yes, because, let me leave it at that. Then.
Was it not obvious even at the time? I don't think it's enough for you to say that in hindsight you accept. Was it not obvious even at the time? Why put stumbling block after stumbling block after stumbling block without giving him solutions? He has come to you for a solution.
Chair, at the time, the solution was for me to say, go and complete the investigations. Go and do the stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I
And for
did tell
that,
him that.
and for that to happen, Mr. Behari, he needs time, and he can only have enough time if you agree to the extension of the suspension. The suspension was not was for a purpose. It was not for the sake of it. Suspension should be removed from the system for proper investigations to take place. So why do you not give him time to do that? By assisting him with what he came to you for, extending the suspension. It's not enough to say in hindsight you agree with me.
Chair, when he came to me, it was about supporting the extension of a suspension. We had the engagements. I said to him, these are what I think are problematic. These are things we have to close, and these are the witnesses we have to deal with. It never didn't finalize. I said, can I speak to the chief of police? And then the next meeting was the chief of police called me. But that was by the time the suspension had lapsed. But I didn't deal with any
Effectively, you let the suspension expire, Mr. Behari. You let the suspension expire.
Chair,
you are raising all the problems with him, and you say, I'm going to speak to the chief of police, and by the time you speak to the chief of police, the suspension has expired. You let it expire.
Chair, but Chair, there was never an intention to let the suspension expire. My intention was to make sure that we have all the processes, because as I said, applying the laws to say that a suspension is not punitive, nothing stops us from still carrying on and saying that we have new information to resuspend. The HOD HR could have resuspended. But for me, looking at it, and I know you mentioned that I'm going on about the compliance issue. That was what was important to me. How do you finalize these gaps? And Erasmus could not give me at that stage any response, but it could be taken, and I say to you that I let it lapse, but it was never my intention. My intention was to look at how do we finalize and close all the gaps. The suspension could always have gone back and said to the HOD, let's resuspend. There's been other cases where we've resuspended. Suspension lapse, we resuspended.
Yes. You see, I would understand you, Mr. Behari, on your point about the possibility of continuing with investigations even when the person is back with their suspension having expired. I would understand if you were saying that, having told Colonel Erasmus in so many words that, Colonel, I have all these gaps which need to be plugged, but let the suspension expire. You can continue with your investigation to plug these gaps with Brigadier Mkwanazi back at work. I would understand if that was your approach and if that was what you communicated to Colonel Erasmus. You never did that. You are now stating this in the witness box.
Chair, because as I said, that is the policies of the city. These are legislation.
I understand the policies, I understand the prescripts, but the point I'm raising relates to your response to Colonel Erasmus when it comes to you for advice. Sitting there now, you tell us that in accordance with our prescripts, even if a suspension has expired, investigations may continue. You are saying that in the witness box, but Colonel Erasmus came to you for advice. You never responded to him that way. That is the point I'm raising. It's different from the question of prescripts that you are raising.
Chair, as I could say, is I focused on the issues. Colonel Erasmus, as I said, I'm aware of the processes in terms of suspensions. If the suspension lapses, we've dealt with that previously, we can always suspend again. Because there's new issues that came in.
Can you please focus on how you dealt with Colonel Erasmus? Please,
but that was
please do not focus on the prescripts. I understand them.
Okay,
Can you focus on how you dealt with Colonel Erasmus? That's my issue.
Chair, there was no definitive response to Colonel Erasmus. I did say to him, I will discuss it also with the Chief of Police. Because even if the suspension lapsed then, I could have still discussed it with the Chief to say, right, once we finalized it, let's go proceed further on that issue.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? After the suspension lapsed, you would have been aware because you say in your statement it was impending, the lapse. After it had lapsed, did you ever say to Erasmus and to Mapiaye, in the light of the serious allegations mentioned in Erasmus's investigation, the city has the power to resuspend, so I advise you to consider that as an option. Did you ever do that?
No, I didn't say it in so many words, because it is available within the HR space that you can do that.
No, but
I did not.
Either you did or you did not. And if you did not, just say, I did not advise
Chair,
them.
I did not give them that. After Erasmus finished off with Erasmus, there was a break with the Chief of Police. The issue of suspension then never came out thereafter, because there was other issues. I understand that, I don't know how far that process is followed, but it seems to be, when I spoke to the Chief of Police on the 21st.
Behari, you are the head of legal within Ekurhuleni. You know if the power to resuspend is there in the prescripts. The reason Erasmus came to you in the first place was he was aware of the impending period, and he was asking you for support. You are now aware that the period has come and gone, and the effect of that is that Mukwanazi is back at work. You know that.
Yes.
And you're now engaging with the two of them, Mapiaye and Erasmus, on the seriousness, and we'll still come back to that later on, the seriousness of the allegations. But as head of legal, at no point do you advise the city manager or Mapiaye or Erasmus that there is a power to resuspend. These are serious allegations. Erasmus probably needs time to plug all these gaps. I find that astonishing.
Chair, if I may, when I raised those issues with both Mapiaye and Erasmus, I had nothing further after my last meeting with Chief of Police. Now, if he had come back and we've plugged the gaps, but there was no response due to the nature of issues I've raised with the Chief of Police. There was no further comeback to me. And if they say we've addressed the issues that you raised in our meeting, can we now go on? And I would have said, yes, certainly, let's go to a resuspension. That is how we've done resuspension, to say, this is what the initial circumstances were. We've addressed that, and now we can go on. But that matter seemed to have stopped or stalled. The last was on the 21st of June. And then I heard nothing further from that.
Mr. Behari, I have an issue with the notion that Colonel Erasmus approached you on the issue of the suspension. You didn't tell us why he wanted the extension of the suspension, because in your statement, you say that he told you that he had concluded his investigation and wanted an extension pending the disciplinary action. Why did he want the extension pending the disciplinary action if the investigation, according to him, had been concluded?
Chair, those were the issues when he came to me saying that the investigation was concluded, he wanted me to support an extension. Now, if you look at the conclusion of that, when I raise these issues, but is your investigations complete? And given the fact of the witnesses that you're going to call for the disciplinary inquiry, I extended that to say, but these are the witnesses. Do you not have to revisit anything? Are there any other witnesses? Do you have to get a statement from Mr. Jeff Weeks? Do you have to look at the engagements with Mwabe, Christine? So, if those had been completed and returned to me, certainly we could have suspended, but anyway, I would have supported another suspension through the HR processes.
Yes, but I think that goes to if the investigation is not complete. He comes to you and says the investigation is complete. I've concluded my investigation, but I still want an extension pending the disciplinary action. Surely those reasons must be different to I still have an investigation to conclude. And if those reasons are different, you can't even go into the merits because he said to you, I've concluded my investigation, but I want the extension suspended pending the disciplinary action. So he must have given, there must have been a different reason other than the conclusion of the investigation, other than filling gaps, because he comes to you on the premise that the investigation has been concluded. And you know as a lawyer that one of the reasons could be that the safety of the witnesses if he comes back to work, or that he might intimidate workers or he might influence evidence. You in your statement, you don't say why he asked for the extension. And in light of the suggestion that Chief of Police Mapieye says you took the docket from him, he was pressurized to give the docket to you. It seems to me that Colonel Erasmus' approach for an extension is a convenient explanation as to why you inserted yourself into this process in the first place, because he had no reason to ask you for the extension. We have no record of him even requesting the extension, and it would seem to me that he would go to someone else who had already been involved in the process, like the chief of the police or head of HR, to speak to them about the extension. So you aren't able to tell us what he asked you the extension for, what was the motivation for it, because the investigation was concluded. And all that you give him in response to that is gaps about an investigation that he told you has been concluded. And that is, I think, the difficulty that we have, is that you're not telling us why he came to you in the first place. It couldn't have been to finalize his investigation.
Chair, Mr. Erasmus never came to me to grant an extension. He never came to me to grant an extension. He gave to me to say that the process of extensions is with the HR process. I need some comments to support that. And then I started, okay, Henny, is your case finished? You say, I see your report says investigation is complete on this day. So what do you need the extension for? And if you need the extension, are there any other witnesses that you still need to secure? Are there, because in my environment, Chair, you don't grant an extension for the mere asking. You know, I've got to apply my mind to say, well, what else is still required? And if there is a process, then after that, to say, I've raised, and look at, are you going to close up the gap with Christine? Are you going to close up the gap with Guabe? These are some of the issues. I think I've documented that in terms of the issues I raised. So there was never approach to me to grant an extension. It was to support that, and I engaged with it to say this is what our issues are and what are the reasons for. You have to have the reasons why. I could say to the HOD HR, I support these reasons. Can we go on?
Yes, Mr. Behari, in your paragraph 54, you say he came to you to seek guidance regarding the impending expiry of the precautionary suspension. So, in your own words, that's why he approached you. It had to do with the with a suspension that was about to expire. And then you say he advised that he had concluded his investigation and wished to extend the suspension pending disciplinary action. So you tell us that's what he came to speak to you about. You then, in the next following paragraphs, you tell us that you pointed out the gaps, what you say are the gaps. But you don't say to us, I then told him the extension can be extended. I mean, the suspension cannot be extended because of these gaps. You don't say that, no. Even though that's why he came to you. But there's a different point I want to make about it. It is, Colonel Erasmus tells you, I've completed my investigation. I want to keep this man on suspension. You raise issues with that, but you don't say to him, because you're going to investigate these gaps, while you deal with these gaps, extend the extension. You're the one that raises gaps. The owner of the case is satisfied that he's concluded his investigation. You raise issues, the absence of a statement from Jeff Wicks, absence of statement from Deputy Chief Mzolo. You say the content of DCP Gwabe's statement. I don't know why that is a gap to do with suspension. And then you say a letter from Christine indicating the acceptance of donated vehicles. I don't know what that has to do with a suspension, the extension of a suspension, but maybe I should put it more positively. I don't think it has anything to do with whether you extend or not. But the two that you say are absent, the statements. So you lead him on a path where you say, go find this, or these are issues. But you don't say to him, because you're going to be looking at these things, you should extend. You don't say that. Can you just explain that behavior?
Yeah, I did not say to him that I will support the extension to the. I asked him to go. Have you dealt with these issues? And from there, he indicated that he understood he would address those issues. But I did not then say to him, no, I'll support your extension in the meantime, because it could have been that I should have done that. But I did not say I'll support your extension in the meantime. I said I'd like to speak to the Chief of Police as well to say that how can we finalize that. Because if it come back...
I think that the problem, and what I'm asking you to explain, is when you say to him, go and close these gaps, how is it that you don't say to him, in the meantime, while you are looking at these gaps, you will extend, you should extend the suspension? I mean, that's why he came to you. He wants to extend the suspension. You raise problems to do with his matter, and then you don't say to him, because you're going to address, while you address these two issues, or these four issues according to you, then there should be an extension. You don't say that to him. And I'm asking you to explain the absence of that kind of advice to him after you pointed out gaps that he needs to go and investigate further according to you.
Chair, when I guided, or for the guidance in the engagements with Erasmus, when I pointed out these issues to deal with, at that stage, Chair, when he came to me, I did not have to say, what are the grounds for further extension of this process? Because you said to me your investigations are complete. Yes, I opened certain issues and to go that. So knowing that there could have been a resuspension when it was finalized, I then did, in fact, yes, I did not deal with it totally. Instead of saying to him, I've guided you in this way, maybe I ought to have done that. But I did not do it at that stage.
It's not even a maybe to me, at least how I think about it. It seems to be the logical conclusion, should have been the logical conclusion of your discussion, because the reason he comes is, what do I do? His suspension is about to expire. I need to talk to you about that. You don't advise him on that. You are silent about that. Instead, you give him problems, right? You say to him, go address these gaps. And I'm saying to you, it seems to me, in fact, it seems to me that the logical conclusion of this conversation, where you have pointed out problems, would and should have been, no, you don't have a good reason to to extend the suspension, or in the light of these further investigations, and I suggest it should be the latter, in the light of these further investigations that I'm indicating to you, that in itself is a ground to extend. You should extend it before it expires. I don't understand how you did not advise on this that he approached you about, especially where the only advice, or reasonable advice rather, let me say, would have been, in the light of the issues I've raised with you, you do have a reason to go and extend the suspension.
Chair, I believe at that stage it would be premature for me to have done that, to have supported the extension. And then by that time, I understood from him there was already an extension request to the HR department. But he was coming to me to give that added aspect. And for me, I believe it would be premature until we finalize those issues that I had raised. So I didn't proceed that way.
So are you saying when he came to you to ask you for advice or to have a discussion with you about the extension of the suspension, a request had already been made to HR to extend?
That's what I understood. There was something. So he wanted me to give him comments that could have been supporting, they could take it to HR. And that is when I raised the issue. I understood that it was already going to HR for the extension of the suspension.
So your discussion with him about the extension would have been a waste of time then, if the request was already with HR?
Well, if I could, if it was still at HR, and if I give him, if everything was in order there, and I found the reason, I could have sent through the support to the HR department.
Thank you.
I'm confused right now. Let me start here. Did I understand you correctly before my co-commissioner started engaging you? Did I understand you correctly that in response to Ms. Siegel's Ncube, you said Colonel Erasmus had not come to you for advice? I thought I heard you say so.
No, he's not come to me for the extension. He's come to me to deal with the guidance.
He had not come to you for advice on the extension.
No, not come to me for an extension. I think that is where I understood to talk about an extension itself. But he had come to me for advice to look at how we could support the extension through the HR process.
I find it strange that your statement is silent on this thing about HR, which you suddenly mention now that you are being asked pointed questions. Your statement is quite detailed. It's one of the longest we have had in this commission. It's 44 pages long, quite detailed on all the subjects. There is no mention at all of HR. You suddenly mention HR when we question you for not having given advice to Colonel Erasmus on what he had come to you about, which was guidance regarding the impending expiry of the suspension. That's what your statement says in so many words in paragraph 54. He had come to you to seek guidance on the impending expiry of the suspension. Now we ask you questions around why you never gave that advice. Now you suddenly say, no. With regard to the extension of the suspension, that was a process that was before HR, and therefore I did not have to give advice. How is that so when your statement is so detailed? How is it that your statement does not mention AR? Would I be unfair? Would I be unfair if I suggest to you that you are suddenly mentioning HR because you are faced with difficulties? Because now you cannot tell us why you did not advise Colonel Erasmus on what you had come to him about, or rather, on what he had come to you about.
Chair, at the time Colonel Erasmus came to me, there was already a process for the extension pushed through to HR. He wanted me to give him some supporting comments and advice that they could support it to HR, to the HR HOD. That is where the extent is when I raise the issue. So for me to support anything without having the full details.
And your statement says nothing about any of that insofar as it relates to HR. It says nothing about that. You only mention it for the first time when we question your failure to advise him on what he, in your own words, had come to you about. That's when you mention HR for the first time. Yes, it gives you a way out. You try to get away from the difficulty facing you by suddenly mentioning HR. I suggest to you, Mr. Behari, that you are mentioning HR for the first time because you cannot answer the questions we are putting to you about your failure to advise Colonel Erasmus on what he had sought your advice.
Chair, I cannot, I hear you, but I cannot support that. I respect that fact that Erasmus came to me on the way to HR for the approval of that.
Okay.
I then raised the issues which I said to, if I'm going to support an extension, these are the issues that need to be addressed. I did not have, at that stage, any information, and I believed it to be premature to me to even look at supporting a suspension. That was the process already going through. So yes, my statement doesn't deal with HR because I've dealt with what I was dealing with Erasmus. This has come through now in terms of when we engaged, there was a process for extension because the extension of the suspension would have had to be before the end of, sometime toward the end of May. So he came to me during the time or very close to that, with 1 or 2 days, I think, before that. So even if I'd asked for any further information and extended that, I understood it, but it was a process on its way to HR. So my apologies if I didn't, in my statement, deal with it, but that is the process there at HR. I was in the way to say, so please, can you support this? I raised issues on what,
and what you raised as gaps, were these even gaps? Were these even gaps? Let's look at the first one, the one about an outstanding statement from Mr. Jeff Wicks. Mr. Jeff Wicks had raised issues that were or ought to have been within the knowledge of EMPD officials. Is that not correct?
Chair, with regard to Jeff Wicks, it came to the knowledge of EMPD officials, Rivers Peace, through Jeff Wicks.
Yeah.
Now, in my engagements, whatever issues we're dealing with, we have a primary, in terms of the value chain of the evidence, to say, who did you get the information from? So if Jeff Wicks was there, and Chief of Police wrote a letter to Jeff Wicks, so I asked him, did Jeff Wicks respond? Because there was a letter. So either Jeff Wicks said, no, I'm not coming to the process or whatever. It wasn't there, it wasn't obvious from that engagement. Then the next witness was Mzolo.
No, before you move to someone else, I'm saying the issues raised by Mr. Jeff Wicks were issues that the EMPD could, within the EMPD, have been able to establish for itself. Is that correct or not?
It would not have been, the issue of the blue lights, they could have done that. The issue of the donations, they could have done it, that's correct.
Yes.
But still, it must emanate from somewhere, Chair. The investigation comes from somewhere. It comes from Mr. Wicks. If there's any questions posed to EMPD.
All that he did was to bring into the public domain facts of which the EMPD people were either aware or could easily have become aware, and you've already accepted that.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why you would have insisted on a statement by Mr. Jeff Wicks. I don't understand that.
Chair, I did not insist and say he must get a statement from Jeff Wicks.
But that was one of your gaps?
Yes, the names were there to say, did you get